All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Wowhead Weekly number 165. If you guys have been following us, you will know that we took a couple weeks break. Guess that's what happens when it's summer times. Traveling happens, other things happen, but we are back, and the content is getting crazier and crazier as the expansion is getting closer. I am Annie, or also known as Annie Fuchsia, full-time streamer on Twitch, and as usual, we will have our co-host, Perculia.
Hey everyone, I'm Perk. I run Wowhead, and it's always really cool doing Wowhead Weekly, so
One
we
sec.
can... Uh-oh.
You disappeared.
Oh no, I didn't do anything. It wasn't me. It wasn't Brightpaw.
It's not your fault. No,
Okay.
It's not Brightpaw's fault either. You just disappeared.
Okay.
That's not right either. All right. You are back.
Okay. Hi everyone. We're happy to be back. I'm happy to go over all the cool things in the WoW universe and Wowhead, because we've had like Prepatch and login screen and artifacts blowing up since the last time we had a show. And Brightpaw is right here, going in and out of camera. So I'm sure he'll make an appearance as well when he wants to.
He looks calm today. So what's special this week is that we also have a guest with us.
Yeah, we have AutomaticJak. Hey, Jack.
Yay! Random applause.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Welcome, Jack. Tell us more about yourself.
Yeah, I'm Jack, also a full-time streamer on Twitch, and I'm one of the guide writers as well for Wowhead. So I write the guides for Holy and Discipline Priest, and I was also one of the hosts or commentators for the Mythic Dungeon Invitational that we just wrapped up at the end of June.
Mm-hmm. And we all know about the Mythic Dungeon Invitational, don't we, guys? I think the MDI has become so popular. It makes me really happy, actually, to see that.
Yeah.
That there's some kind of esports which is growing and has so much interest and is bringing so many people in the communities together.
Yeah,
I think it's great.
Did, like 100K concurrence in the grand final.
Yeah.
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 It was absolutely incredible. It's big, it kind of blew us away of, especially when we got like put on the launcher, for example, how many people were just kind of coming into it, especially for the first time, to be able to experience, competitive Mythic Plus, and especially because it's the first expansion that we've been able to have Mythic Plus, and Wowhead, of course, has been covering all kinds of changes to the dungeons and different affixes coming up. I love that we're seeing a lot more support for that, and it's just only going to make the program better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So before we jump into more questions, I just wanted the people watching to know we're going to do a little like spotlight on Jack, like talking about the MDI, because you all really want to hear that, and then we'll get into the beta and live news, and Jack will stay around and give his opinions. But if you're like, oh, where's my beta news? We're going to talk about what Jack does first for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet.
So Jack, we know that you do a lot of pet battles. No, I'm kidding. So it's going to be MDI spotlight, just as Perk mentioned. Yep. And you mentioned you casting for MDI. So how does it feel to be casting for MDI, especially with, the concurrent viewers that we've heard about as well? Does it make you nervous? How do you prepare for such a thing?
Oh, it was definitely a privilege to be a part of the program, especially, the very first time last year when we had MDI 1 in 2017. It was really amazing to start off a program and be able to kind of work with, the other streamers and commentators like Sloot, Trekkie, Rich, at the very start of like, how do we actually want, the program to look? How are we actually, commentating the dungeons? Because, for PvP, it's like there's action all the time. There's setup, there's build up towards it. There, a lot of times you can have really quick games. But with dungeons, a lot of times it's much longer. There's some, intermission kind of moments to it. So there's been a lot of fun. Yeah, and there's been some downtime, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the first time, they paired me up with Sloot for, the 3 weekends in 2017 that we did the MDI, and that was amazing because it was also the one person who I actually knew in the program. So it was like, oh, okay.
That's perfect.
So it was a lot easier to have like a conversation, be able to have fun with it, and it felt a lot more natural to be able to do that. And going into 2018, obviously we had a lot more talent that was brought on board, a lot more commentators. So in many ways, it was just a lot of fun being able to have more heads in, being able to kind of work together and give each other feedback. And the LAN, of course, at the end of June was absolutely amazing. because being able to meet all the players, especially from like North America, from players I've met before, or played with in game before, but never really seen their face, it was like, oh, that's who that person is, and overall the experience is incredible. It's kind of like a mini WoW convention, really.
I was actually just gonna say that. It sounds a little bit like, when you have a WoW community and you know people by their names, but you don't really know the faces, or you may have seen a picture, but it's not the same thing. And then you meet people and do things IRL. I think it sounds awesome. Did you do any other kind of casting before this, MDI casting?
No, never.
No.
And it was basically in 2017. They'd asked me to be a part of it, and I got to kind of kick it off. And like I mentioned earlier, I'm the Holy and Disc Priest guide writer, so there weren't a ton of Holy and Disc Priests in the MDI at all. So after 2017 MDI, I was kind of the only healer on the team there. So a lot of it was, let me see how much I can, for one, push Mythic Plus on my Disc Priest, which I kind of hit my cap at like 25, 26. Yeah. And then I started working on Paladin and Druid to kind of, start studying up, increase my knowledge, and, be in more favorable specs for what the current meta is, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Speaking of that, were there any challenges, like any specific type of thing you felt was the most difficult to prepare for? Like, for example, you know a ton about priests, but did you feel you had to start playing the other healing specs to understand them better, to be a better commentator? Or was there like a type of match that is harder to make it come to life than another type of match that you're trying to give commentary on?
Oh, it definitely paid, working so much more on my Paladin and my Druid, being able to understand the legendaries, the different setup for it. Like Druid especially has a cornucopia of legendaries that they're going to run through for Mythic Plus. There's so many gear swaps going on. And one of the best things about the 2018 MDI is one of the staff had actually made a extension for the Warcraft channel, being able to see all the see all of the gear sets and linking to Wowhead in the process, right? Which was amazing to be able to see, but it also required, so very much on the fly, being able to see, when are they switching gear? When are they setting themselves up for certain situations? And the more that I was able to practice that, the preparation, 6 months before, I had no idea if there's going to be another one, or if they're going to ask me to be a part of it, really paid off when the MDI came around this year, being able to know, what those Druids are going to do, what the Paladins are going to do, and also get a better idea of the strategies going into the tournament.
Yeah, it seemed like they really stepped up their game with the UI. There's always room for improvement, but between the extension and some of the other meters that they added, as well as different parts of the screen showing like how far they were and what the different affixes were, like all that seemed to add to the production quality of the MDI this time.
Of course, and like you said, they're never truly like satisfied with the UI. They always want to be able to kind of iterate and adjust things as needed, but I loved it. There's some talk about healing meters, but when you're talking about how much of the screen that you're able to actually have covered, there's a lot of times where being able to have that extra screen space really helps be able to kind of see these little things of different, mobs coming into certain angles, or if people were pulling mobs from different directions. See extra positioning on the field that really helped out a lot, especially from a commentator's perspective.
Yeah, it's always a satisfying moment when the full screen grows up and it's like, oh, like this team's ahead, like let's just get rid of everything and focus on them, doing that last 1% on the dungeon.
Just see everything.
Build up that focus. The hype.
Was there a particular match you really enjoyed? Like, was there a highlight of the last MDI that really stood out for you? Was just fun to watch or fun to commentate, or both?
I think the finals and the upper bracket finals. So both were Method NA versus Shells Angels, and the way that those games were kind of going out, and especially seeing a team like Shells Angels, for example, which was the most aggressive team in the tournament, and of course, spoiler alert, they did take it home and win the grand finals. But in the upper bracket finals, they had such tight margins between their dungeons. It was like a cathedral run on a +24, where Shells Angels just kind of missed a little bit of trash percentage because they kind of scuffed one of their pulls. They weren't able to pull it off correctly. They missed trash percentage as they go to the very top of the spire cathedral, and they just were not able to make it up until they ran all the way back down. So they lost the map there. But then they pull out a win on Neltharian's Lair, winning by like 9 or 10 seconds or something like that, right? So having some like razor thin matches, not only by very evenly placed teams, but also by teams in different regions, was just absolutely amazing to watch.
Yeah, I think it's always super exciting when it's so even that it's just a few seconds apart that tells who's gonna be the winner. I'm getting flashbacks just you talking about it.
Yeah.
I think that is definitely the most exciting.
And it reminded me of in the 2017 MDI, Quinn had a team for the Asia Pacific weekend, and I think it was in a dark heart thicket, and his team, I believe they lost the map, but it was like 0.01 seconds or something like that. It was just like the most razor thin margin possible.
Yeah.
Right. Those games are actually incredible, and
yeah, they really are.
This season of MDI has just stepped up so much more in competitiveness. There's so many closer games.
Yeah, so when you were talking about how it became more competitive, that made me think about, BlizzCon All-Stars and how there's more on the line this MDI than, last MDI. I was curious what your thoughts were on some of these changes and announcements they made going into the grand finals, like, All-Stars, but also things like, everyone's favorite topic, being able to reset the instance, and, just other tweaks that went along the way. We didn't really see too much, Black Cold Mage in the finals, which is getting tiresome in the earlier part of the MDI. So, yeah, what are your thoughts on just all the things they announced leading up to the grand finals?
Well, the MDI All Stars. I mean, it's close to the Method All Stars, but having two teams going for it. But the MDI All Stars was amazing. Not only because it's saying this is really growing, this is really seeing potential in all of Blizzard esports eyes, really, because BlizzCon's an amazing event, but there's so much going on. So the fact that there's going to be an MDI there is just absolutely insane.
Yeah,
there's so many different esports. There's so many worthy platforms that are going on at the same time. So the fact that there's going to be a stage there is just insane. And being able to talk to a lot of the teams when we were at the LAN, all their focus was, we just want to go to BlizzCon. We just want to go to BlizzCon. So like Gulch Trotters, for example, getting knocked out, at least they were saying, hey, we got to BlizzCon, the only Asia Pacific team that's going to get flown to BlizzCon and be able to compete on that kind of stage. And, so cool. even though they got knocked out, they were still super ecstatic about it. So that was amazing. But also, with the tournament changes, like you mentioned, the idea is, especially when they set up the 4 weekends for each region, they have a specific set of rules that they're going to be following as best they can. And even when you start seeing in practice where, oh, okay, we probably could have changed that, or we probably could have done that, they have to continue and stay consistent for those 4 weeks before they start changing the rule set, for the LAN environment, right? Just to be able to make that happen. So yeah, like one of them, like you mentioned, was going to be the remakes. How much should they get involved in remaking the dungeon? Because we've seen a lot of times where there's a lot more polish on like the raid environment, for example, in terms of the bugs that we see there being fixed quickly versus dungeons. And hopefully that kind of ends up switching over and maybe balancing out a little bit more with how great Mythic Plus has actually ended up being, how impactful it has been. So like, for example, the starter map for the MDI LAN was Dark Heart Thicket. And they said, if there's little creative use of game mechanics, that's at your own risk, because they could easily bug out and mess you up. So we're not going to remake for that, but we're also not going to penalize you for that. So there's a number of teams who are just kind of like having mobs teleport through walls. They said, well, like, hey, everybody knows about it. We're not going to penalize you, but if something goes wrong, that's on you guys.
Yeah.
Right.
And it made the games go a lot faster, and it always kind of hurts to have the remake, especially because the teams are maybe not interacting with each other. But if you were going to have it where they're saying, oh, we're just going to have one team go by themselves, then it's not really a race, right? So
Yeah.
That's a challenge that they have to do. So having no remakes going on throughout it, having very specific rules as to how they want to do remakes was great. And you're only going to be able to learn how involved the admins have to be in remaking or changing things around once you actually do it. So there is that like kind of 20/20 hindsight, but it's nice having such a large gap between the regionals and the LANs that you're able to say, oh, okay, how can we best vet these rules and then prepare them for the LAN.
Exactly. And I think like what you mentioned with bugs and things in general, I think with MDI, the interest for Mythic Plus growing so much, I think that they will 100% work on polishing the dungeons a lot more to make sure that those kind of things don't happen, because especially when Mythic Plus gets a lot of attention, it's also in a way like embarrassing for Blizzard themselves to have such things that are not working properly. So I think they will definitely make sure that those things work like as expected and no surprising glitches or anything like that, so that it becomes cleaner and, you know, better for everyone, for viewers and the players themselves too.
Yeah, and on North American Horde side, we actually have a Mythic Plus Discord all set up, and you know, some of the admins there reached out to Blizzard, so you know they're funneling as many bug reports as possible to make sure that they're able to, you know, get these things fixed and you know, taken care of early. And with how much everybody's been streaming, and you know, myself and Salute and many others, where we're seeing, like, you know, just the other day I was running with Salute and he started breaking the last boss in Shrine of the Storm, where he's supposed to throw you down into an intermission phase, and then he kind of, I still don't know exactly what he did, but you know, he kind of like dipped out, and we ignored the intermission phase, and I was like, wow, that's
wow,
that's
a good tactic.
Yeah, but the fact that we're finding those things early. Right?
Oh yeah, definitely helps.
I'm just kind of hoping for like a 120 PvE realm, because I definitely want to play all of the healers in Mythic Plus instead of taking 8 to 10 hours to level each individual one, then gearing them up. But
oh, you mean like a separate server?
Sanctum, and then I was like, oh, I can't actually leave Borealis. I'm just stuck here with all this awesome gear. Wouldn't it be nice if I could actually do stuff in the world? And then, like, I think Siege and King's Rest, you have to do quests and reputation to lock them.
I play Horde, and Siege of Borealis is actually locked behind an attunement. So it's a bunch of different quests and rep grind, etc. And for me, it was kind of heartbreaking because I love Siege of Borealis. It's like a really fun dungeon. And it's like, well, now we can't actually run this key unless we want to spend all this time, you know, grinding to make sure that we unlock it. And even if we unlock it, it doesn't mean everybody else is going to be unlocking it as well. So that was a little bit unfortunate. But that also kind of goes to what I was talking about, how, you know, seeing more balance between the polish of raids and dungeons. You know, we already have, you know, the automatic scale up for raid weekends. You know, say, hey, LFR's open all weekend, go crazy, right? Or there are these days during the week where you can practice the mythic and heroic bosses, right? That's what I'm kind of hoping. I mean, I know the clock's ticking on them with the expansion coming out, but that would be a huge thing in my mind, to be able to, you know, focus on more Mythic Plus, getting people kind of scaled up more rapidly, and have more people try those things out.
So you're talking about on beta, right?
Yes, on beta.
Yeah, okay.
I feel like that would be really important, especially for Siege and King's Rest, because those dungeons occupy a prominent place also for story reasons, and they're also mythic only. So it seems that you want those dungeons to be polished and really good if they're, you know, only intended to be run on the highest difficulty, and people's first impression would be like, oh my god, like, you know, Borealis is under fire, and you don't want the thing to be all glitchy and weird on you. So definitely a fan if they do add some PvE realms, so you know, you guys aren't doing the war campaign 10 times just to give feedback.
And also being able to see, you know, greater balance, specifically for Mythic Plus, because, you know, another topic that a lot of people want to talk about next to remakes is class representation, right?
Yeah.
They're saying,
very repetitive.
We're all blood DKs, right? We're all, you know, holy pallies, arrested druids, right? And I think one of the best ways to start being able to take a look at the reasons why those classes are so heavily represented is just throwing everybody in and saying, you know, like, I know it's going to kind of kill leveling if that is to happen, but like, we're a month out, and I think, you know, most people are pretty good to go with leveling, and hopefully they're pretty good to go with leveling feedback, right?
Yeah, I mean, they already did the character wipe to get more leveling feedback, so I mean, they should have enough, or at least they have a lot more leveling feedback than they do Mythic Plus
Exactly,
feedback.
Yeah, so probably time for some more Mythic Plus feedback. Yeah. And in talking about different realms, because for a second I thought you were talking about real realms. So the idea of having a separate realm for people to practice Mythic Plus in time for, you know, MDI, I guess, what is it called when it starts? Is it like qualifications? So when it's like proving grounds.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So like in the early stages when people are trying to get qualified, like if there's, I'm not sure if there ever was any kind of server where people could practice that. I think if people had to use their own characters, right?
Yeah, the way of qualification I really liked. This time around, I probably wouldn't tweak it around too much, but it was basically get your buddies together, complete 5 level 23 dungeons, and then you get put onto the tournament realm where you get all the gear under the sun, and then you start practicing for time trials.
Okay.
So time trials, that you basically get a week to grind the dungeons as hard as possible, which maybe they could adjust here and there, but getting making fairly light barrier of entry, you know, saying get the 23s done, then you'll be able to get in. I really liked, because it also allowed people to get a lot more involved in it.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that sounds good. I didn't know the exact details about it since I never entered myself. So you did have a tournament realm where people could like just go in and you had the gear ready and all that stuff. All right, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Do you
That's
think it would
awesome.
ever be fun to like participate in that yourself on the other side of the casting desk, or
It's
know,
definitely
just-
tempting.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
definitely tempting going into it. So, and seeing, and one of the things when I was kind of working on, Priest and Paladin, or sorry, Paladin and Druid rather, is, a team started forming up for MDI, and I was still like, not 100% on Paladin, not 100% on Druid. I was just like, man, this would be really fun if like all of them were all prepared. But given the option, I think, my first priority would probably still be casting, being able to work, not only with the fellow casters, but also being able to see, the behind the scenes or working with the production team from MLG, for example, was really amazing. Seeing how much time those people put into it, where, first one's in, last one's out, for multiple weekends, taking, traveling all over the world to make sure they're actually putting on a great show. That's amazing to be around those kind of people,
And I remember hearing comments from, I believe it was Nagura, I might be mistaken, who talked about, being a part of the competition itself or being a caster. As a caster, if you know that you're casting, you know that you'll have, something important to do the entire time, right? Whereas if you're competing, you might be one of the first teams out, and then you're kind of like, there's not much else left to do.
Yeah.
And that's kind of sad too. So at least with casting, you have that guarantee of, being excited and happy the entire time.
Yeah, and the way that the competition continues to step up, I think it'll be harder for teams to get away, especially as a streamer. And I'm sure Nagura will be in the same boat. When you're not going to be able to stream certain strategies for the dungeons, especially early on.
Right, having to go dark is kind of a blow, especially at the start of BFA, where more people are interested in watching WoW. Being able to having to go dark would be really strange for a stream.
Yeah, that would be sad for the stream.
Yeah, I mean, I know like Dr. J and a lot of the team for Method PogChamp were putting in entire days, of not streaming or streaming only a couple hours, where that's their whole job, and they have to take off from that for the competition's sake, right?
Yeah, that's a very good point. You don't want to have to sacrifice to be able to.
There's pros and cons.
Yeah, I mean, being on the BlizzCon stage would be pretty huge, and maybe if Blizzard keeps expanding that in the future, then there'll be more incentives to, take that time off the stream and have that chance of having everyone watch you at BlizzCon. Like, I was really sad when they got rid of the raid races, because they were always really fun to watch for me.
I agree.
But it was hard to keep them, I guess, unique and engaging year after year. So I'm sort of viewing this as like a return to the PvE fun races at BlizzCon.
Yeah, I was thinking the same. Like you said, with the raids, it kind of becomes, it's the same raid, like over and over. So what you're looking at is just what bosses are dead. Yeah. Whereas with Mythic Plus, there's many different dungeons, and also the affixes bring, a bit of flavor to that as well.
They can even add like a BlizzCon specific affix. How they have
yeah, that would be so cool. Yeah.
BlizzCon, everything, I don't know, is blue, and I don't know, deals more damage.
Well, you remember the April Fool's affixes they added like the spackling, where it fills in like all the cracks and everything's all smooth, and there you go.
Yeah, there you go. So speaking of streaming, you've been doing a ton of, work streaming on the BFA beta, all these dungeons. What are your thoughts on them? Last week we had, J.B from Method give his thoughts on them as a healer. But, what as a resto druid, but what do you think of them so far on your priest and paladin?
It's definitely noticeable, the kind of shift in focus for the dungeons from Legion to BFA. Where they were talking about, like, we never really were super... I guess the best way to say, they weren't quite predicting how big Mythic Plus would be, or they weren't quite anticipating people would be pushing Mythic Plus as high as they ended up doing in this expansion. Like, we already got a 30 in time, right? I don't think that too many people were anticipating that at the start of the expansion, to be able to see, the infinite scaling dungeons going to that high of a level. And so it really shows with BFA, where they're saying, we really need to keep an eye on, one-shot potential. We need to look at survivability of, healers especially, but also for all the DPS and tanks, be able to see how difficult that content's going to be, the trash mobs, why do people run, for example, and push keys the most on fortified weeks versus tyrannical weeks. Being able to experience both of those on BFA right now, I'm definitely seeing fortified can be extremely nasty, right? Fortified can actually be extremely nasty in Battle for Azeroth, because a lot of the mobs, for example, aren't going to be quite like zombies anymore, where you'll see some pulls in Legion where, you just round up everything, you get a group-wide stun, the tank just, AoEs for a couple seconds, and he runs away, and then the mobs just follow like zombies. Where this is, the mobs keep on throwing rocks, or they will, the tank will drop threat, or the tank will lose out on threat, and the mobs will start hitting one of the melee or something like that, right? So there's a lot more costs that are going on.
Is that the threat change? Or is it just
yes.
different mechanics?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you can really
Yes.
feel it when you do them.
You can't just do the crazy big pull and run away forever, basically, right?
Right.
Some of the mob interactions will still try to follow you like zombies, but you have to kind of dip out a little bit. And playing with Sloot, for example, was really cool because Prop Paladin is a very good kiting tank, but they don't run away miles. They'll drop Consecration, they'll step back, and I get them topped off. They go back in, and they drop Consecration, step back, and they kind of dip in and out. And to make sure that he's always able to have threat established and not losing out on it, and making sure that the run's going to go smoothly. So I think that's a lot more of what we're going to see, where kiting will still be important, but dealing with the threat and with mobs that are not just going to follow you around, and they're actually going to target random members is going to be really important.
Do you have a favorite dungeon so far?
Yes, it's a very nasty timer, but King's Rest is a lot of fun.
Nice.
It is, like I said, it's going to be that mythic only dungeon, but the boss fights are really fun. There is a gauntlet, which is particularly nasty, but it's a lot of fun to be able to run through. A Tall Dazar is kind of like the new Maw of Souls, right? Where it's just pretty straightforward. Everyone's able to kind of run through it. So far, I think my least favorite is going to be like Underrot. There's some really nasty like fixate mobs where they just kind of bash your face in, and there's not really anything you can do about it.
Yeah. I actually, so I haven't done any Mythic Pluses. So does Mythic Plus work properly now in beta?
Yes.
It does. Okay, cool. Good to know. That's awesome.
So you just mentioned Maw of Souls. Obviously one of the reasons why it became infamous at the start of Legion was because, it was slow when you needed that for the AP tokens, and it was a good way to get loot because it was so fast. So what are your thoughts on the changes to Mythic Plus loot in Battle for Azeroth? How you can't really farm the Mythic Plus to get the amazing Azerite piece at the end that is just from the weekly chest and other changes.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it also, like you said, it kind of makes it so that you're going to be a little bit more predisposed to go for raids rather than just spamming Mythic Plus to be able to get all the Azerite pieces you want. But it also is a little bit, it's also nice because the dungeon Azerite pieces aren't too crazy different than the raid ones we have right now. They're not too difficult, for example, or they're not too overpowered. And maybe it's going to be that later tiers and later dungeons are going to have really powerful and really interesting Azerite effects. So even if we get a crazy high level Azerite piece from our weekly chest, it's going to be like, yeah, well, these traits are kind of meh, so I'm not too worried about it. So it's a nice way, especially when Mythic Plus comes out. I guess probably normal heroic week. They haven't really announced it, but I would assume it'll be when normal and heroic raids come out. It'll make it so that we're not going to have some crazy power creep like at the very beginning.
Yeah, and of course, talking about gear, you also have to talk about, what are your thoughts on not being able to swap gear in the Battle for Azeroth Mythic Plus?
I think in a lot of ways it's maybe a little bit too overboard. I get where there's, big rewards and a big highlight for players that farm a lot of gear. They're able to have many swaps, and a lot of BFA is just saying, wow, if you have a lot of gear, you're able to do so much with it. So that definitely does hurt. I understand where they want to make sure they have Azerite locked in, but trinkets kind of make sure that you play for the worst case scenario. So for tanks and healers especially, that'll basically entail if there's one boss in a dungeon that just deals a ton of tank damage, like we could even use it in Legion terms. In Cathedral of Eternal Night, Agronox, the first boss, the Fell Tree, just deals a ton of tank damage. The rest of the bosses really not that bad, right? Maybe Domitrax at the end, deals some good tank damage, but Mephistopheles is like a joke. But the tank always has to run the most defensive trinkets possible to be able to survive. Same thing with the healer. If there's a very healing-intensive fight, they have to run healing trinkets the entire time. And they can't kind of swap around to different trinkets if they want to pump out some damage. So I think it makes you kind of pigeonholed into gear that is prepared for the worst part of the dungeon. It doesn't offer enough kind of min-max to it, unfortunately. So I'd like them to kind of make it so that trinkets were still able to be moved around, but we'll see what happens.
So that means the weapons wouldn't be possible either, right? Because
right.
currently we can change weapons even in combat.
Actually, yeah, that's true.
It seems. I mean, we didn't have to think
Yeah.
about
weapons
that
are a
in
bit
Legion
special.
because of the artifact.
No, exactly. We didn't have to think
Yeah.
about it,
Suddenly
but
do.
yeah, because sometimes people forget that you can actually change weapons whenever you want to, even if you're fighting. But yeah, I think it's a good point with the trinkets, because trinkets are very special. It's not the same as all other gear. It's not just stats. It's very, very specific things that you can, different types of trinkets that you could have. So I think being able to swap those could be quite interesting. But I think in terms of your example with the extreme part of one part of the dungeon having to determine what you need for the entire dungeon, I think they kind of mentioned how they will look into those kind of extremes not being there, because they have
Hopefully.
what's the word, like they have to consider
Tune
the
around
fact
that, yeah.
exactly, they have to tune around it and reconsider things like that, because they don't want to lock you for the whole dungeon just because of a decision you have to make for one part of the fight. So hopefully that means
doesn't. Yeah, that doesn't really add choice either. If it's like,
no,
oh,
exactly.
well, this boss is dangerous, so I'm using the same trinket across, 6 dungeons that potentially have a one-shot mechanic. It's like, oh, that's boring.
Yeah, because it's not choosing a middle ground. It's like you have to choose the worst, or like the worst case scenario, and that's not very fun either.
Yeah, and a lot of the checkpoints especially are kind of well, there aren't any really. A lot of times there just aren't any checkpoints, which is kind of weird if they're saying like, oh yeah, if you want to actually switch trinkets now, you just die, go back to the entrance, jump out, and jump back in, right? Is that going to become more of a meta going forward if people are going to be able to be quick enough? I don't know. We'll see. So if it's that big of a deal, if it's like literally the first boss and you say, oh, okay, we got to zone out, get better trinkets on for the rest of the instance.
Yeah.
That does not seem to be in the spirit of...
No.
It doesn't. Right?
It feels broken when it's like that. But yeah, if that does turn out to be faster, then I think they would have to reconsider things and change it a little bit.
Yeah, I'm sure at BlizzCon they don't want like, engaging gameplay, and here's the top teams in the world, like all just dying to this boss and zoning out.
A timed death would die on purpose. Yeah, we mentioned the. Yes.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
We mentioned changes, and there was one change which is a little bit more of an exciting one. We mentioned the topic of affixes earlier on, and it seems like we're going to be having some seasonal affixes. What are your thoughts on that?
I love the idea of it. I'm still kind of curious about what they want to do for like season rankings, and I know we have some of the things data mined, if I'm not mistaken, Perk. Like different ranking systems or something like that. So I'm kind of interested in what we'll see there. The one that we have right now is infested. So basically, there is one mob that's infested and into a target. So if they're in the middle of a bunch of mobs, you basically have to like sap it or CC it, drag everything away, kill all the other mobs, and then kill that one individually. Because that one individual mob basically has a healing aura around it whenever it's infested. And then once you actually kill that mob, it spawns little mini gahoons that try to infest another target. So you basically just have to pull everything away from it, kill everything else, then kill that mob individually, then kill the little gahoonies, and then you're set. So
the little gahoonies.
Yeah. It definitely slows some things down, without a doubt.
I don't think there's been any data mined rewards yet for M+ seasons, so it'll be interesting if they do add them, because they're going overboard adding all these things to PvP and prestige levels and war mode. So it's interesting there just hasn't been anything announced for Mythic Plus yet, but maybe that means they're saving up for something special.
I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so too. Yeah. And I almost would like to say that I think so, even because the interest for Mythic Plus has grown so much. Like I would be surprised if there wasn't.
It at BlizzCon. It's like, congrats to the team. When they finish this dungeon, we'll announce a reward. And look.
Yeah.
and especially because we've had big rewards in the past. Challenge modes, for example, everybody got their this amazing set of unique gear for their specialization or for their class, right? Where it was like you saw somebody walking around in the paladin set with some big wings. You're just like, whoa, like that's so cool.
And the extra effects when you're casting things as well.
Yeah. You know, and those are some like timeless pieces of gear. So,
they really are.
I'm hoping.
I'm still using a lot of those on my ults,
Same.
especially.
Yep.
Because on my main, you know, I do tend to change it around on different things. But on my ults, since I don't spend that much time on them, the challenge mode sets is like a clear choice. Like, this is the transmog I have to go with. And especially Paladin, like you mentioned. And I think Mage also looks pretty cool. And yeah, I think they're all really, really good looking and unique. And even though the current order halls have like a recolor of those
they're like
them,
not
they're
as
like
detailed.
no, exactly.
Yeah.
They're a more boring color, and the effects are also either toned down or removed altogether. Like for example, the Paladin, when you're casting something, it gives you like these circular effects around your whole character. That is not like there at all with the recolor version. And I think it's cool that they had a, you know, dungeon reward that is that unique. And I'm hoping for something like that for Mythic Plus in the future too.
Even the Pandaria mounts were pretty special because at the time, you had to choose one out of the 4 colors. So it really encouraged you to go and do them on alts so you could get all of the colors. And it was like, I don't know if I can do it on 4 alts. Like, I have to agonize what color egg I'm going to get.
Whoa.
Sorry about
that. Prepatch didn't hear that.
Like, did Prepatch turn into a dog by any chance? Yeah, no, I'm really hoping for some cool stuff for Mythic Plus as well. And speaking of challenge modes, something else that I normally mention to people is how we had those special titles for holding the best time on the server.
Oh yeah, Mistwalk, something like that.
Yeah. Like you had one title for each dungeon for as long as you're holding the best time for that dungeon on your server. And then at the end, when the expansion was over and they removed all those titles, that's when you were given the Mistwalker title, regardless of which ones you completed. And
I love that.
Yeah, me too. I'm hoping for more special things like that to come with Mythic Plus as well. I think
sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, speaking of like rewards and stuff, I think after I finished all my achievements and all things that I needed to do with Mythic Plus, it kind of like the interest for Mythic Plus for me went down like a lot. And I think one of the things that is really exciting for me with the new expansion is seeing that they seem to be rewarding people based on seasons. Which means that for every season, more incentives, makes it more interesting, hopefully cool rewards. And that would be really cool. And sorry, Jack, you were about to say something as well.
No, I agree with you. You know, we're saying unless you're extremely dedicated towards pushing the hardest content possible and always having some other kind of challenge, there's not really a ton of incentives, right? You know, so anything that they can add to that, I think would be, very welcomed.
Yeah, definitely.
So I had a few questions for Jack as a content creator, but Twitch chat, if you have any things we didn't cover with Mythic Plus that you want Jack to answer, put them in chat and we'll keep an eye out and try to fit them in as well before the beta segment. But yeah, so do you want to tell us a little bit about how you got into, streaming? I knew you first as a guide writer, but then you started streaming during college and, now you moved and you're streaming full time. So, tell us about that journey. Maybe some people in chat will be inspired and want to start streaming themselves.
I started streaming almost 4 years ago today. It was something around that. And it was just kind of a hobby. I'd seen, some of my friends and my guildies who were streaming when they were doing like PTR or beta, I think in Warlords or actually no, it was Mr. Pandaria. And I was like, oh, that's like really cool. Like, let me, give this a try. Let me hop in. And it eventually went from, progressive steps where, oh yeah, this is just a hobby. And then getting partnered about 2 years ago in November. It was like, oh wow, like I should be a lot more serious about this, and let me do this as kind of something on the side while I'm going into college. And so it was kind of just more natural steps, and getting into guide writing as well just kind of started off as a passion where I was one of the few people playing Holy Priest and Warlords, and I was like, wow, there really aren't a lot of guides for this. Like, let me give this a try. And one of my buddies posted it on Reddit, and being able to see people going to our website, our guild website, and just checking out the guide and stuff like that was just amazing. I was just like, wow, there's actually, a really big demand for this. So let me keep on working on this and learning more,
Yeah, it sounds really cool.
Do you have any tips for up and coming content creators? People that might be at that, hey, I like streaming in my free time, or I have a guide idea, what do I do type thing to, grow their audience?
I think a lot of it is kind of more gradual steps, right? Where I'm saying, oh yeah, this is just a hobby. And then when I was really wanting to be more serious about it, I'm like, well, let me see what I can kind of do to get partner, right? So let me put in more hours in. And then, once I started going full time, it was going from, maybe I'm just going to stream my raids as just a hobby. And then maybe I'm going to be streaming raids plus anything else that I'm interested in doing when I'm, working on being a partner. And then it's, let me ramp up my hours as much as possible, where it's, 8 to 10, sometimes 12 hours a day of how much more serious can I be on this? And not only just streaming on Twitch, for example, but also working on YouTube, working with, sites like Wowhead, for example, with the guide writing has been amazing. So being able to kind of get into as many different communities as possible, get involved, I think is probably the best way to go, especially with starting streaming.
Yeah, I think that's some really good advice, because I know a lot of people who do start streaming and they are, Mythic Plus players or similar. And I think, like you mentioned, getting into the communities, it sounds like you've really, organically sort of grown yourself. And that's awesome. That's awesome to hear. And I think that's great advice for people as well. Just getting involved with the community and see, what is needed. Find your niche and get in there.
Yeah, I can definitely see some parallels, to how Annie has grown her stream, and I do something, kind of completely different, even though I do the stream. Most of what I do is not streaming, but, it is really important to be part of the community. And when I started off on Wowhead, I was a volunteer, and it's like, well, at some point, if you're going to be serious, you have to be, scheduled and decide how many hours you're going to do something and commit to that. You just won't suddenly, do well if you have a casual mindset to it. But yeah, collaboration with people is always key, I think, regardless of the medium you are in.
And starting it as a hobby, I think that's also something I really recognize. Like I also started streaming for fun because I was actually boosting challenge modes, which is similar to Mythic Plus in a way. And that's how I started. So I was in the sort of challenge mode community, and that's how I started off as well. So not in the guide writing part, but just in the streaming part. And so I recognize that doing it as a hobby, I think, is great advice for people.
Yeah, definitely. And then you'll find if you want to be able to dedicate a lot more time into it, and what else you want to be able to kind of take it, because I think it's hard for people to. Well, a lot of people always look at like, oh, I'm going to be this big variety streamer or something like that, be able to play whatever. And I think especially with WoW, a lot of people who watch you for WoW want to watch you for WoW, and that's going to be their primary focus for it. So, making sure that you enjoy what you're going to be playing every single day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Can't force yourself. People will tell.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, since you are involved with Wowhead with some of the guides, just want to say a few words on kind of how long you've been involved with the site and what you do. And, hopefully you have something to say about this. If you, how do you think Wowhead is useful from a content creator perspective, and just something useful about the site from just like a general player perspective?
Sure. I've worked with Wowhead actually all of Legion. I believe it started right at the end of Warlords of, getting the guides ready for Legion there. So having the entire expansion to kind of experience not only, working on the guides, getting great feedback from not only, other priests, but also, with the team itself, being able to, learn a lot more about, properly formatting them, making things appear a lot more aesthetically pleasing is something I'm definitely preparing for my end of July deadline for BFA coming up, so those have been great tools, but also when you kind of have, and Wowhead more than ever in Legion has become that easy kind of one-stop shop for everything. A lot of times you kind of bounce between Wowhead or a MoChamp, and now I just pull up Wowhead on my front page, and there's always going to be not only the latest news, a very good organization of like class changes, which is something I really like being able to check through as I was working on my pre-patch guides. Where I'm like, well, what actually changed here? And I just have a comprehensive list of every little thing, every little change that's going on. So those are amazing tools as a content creator, but also as just a player who's interested in saying, if I get people coming into my stream and say, what's changed? I just link them that page and I'm saying, here's everything.
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, we've been really trying to grow the content on the site. And Legion, Blizzard gives us stuff faster. Every week it's like, oh, there's a PTR build. I think there's even a build happening during the show. I don't think it's a big build, but I'm seeing commotion. Like I'm seeing my chat log start pinging with people. So we've tried to really ramp up the team, and then also try to make our live news more interesting. So if people aren't interested in the beta, they still can read something interesting on people soloing some difficult fight or some fun giveaway going on, or like an artist in the community. So we've been really trying to ramp up, and yeah, hopefully it's been fun for you. Blizzard's been promoting our Mage Tower challenge guides in some of their recent articles, so that feels pretty good for all of our class writers.
Oh yeah, and I definitely for example had a written guide up for the Mage Tower, but I also added a video to it that I embedded on my guide, and a bunch of people from actually the past week been like, oh, thank you so much for the video that I posted.
Yeah.
7 or 8 months ago or something like that. Where
Oh,
I'm like,
really?
I was like, oh wow, like people are still watching this, they're still checking it out.
Especially
right?
now because it's soon going away.
Going away.
Mhm.
Exactly. I'm actually curious when this went up.
Yeah, I was actually, I did my priest challenges like 2 days ago, I believe. So I started with the disc one. That one went pretty straightforward, and then the holy one, and I was like, oh God. Number one, I'd never played holy, so I had to learn a bunch of new spells. And secondly, it was a really long challenge. I really enjoyed it. It was like, it's so many different, parts of so many different stages, so many different types of things you have to do, and it was really fun. It was really fun.
Yeah.
And I think it took me, I don't know, maybe 2-3 hours or so, maybe a bit more, but I finally got it. It was fun. I liked it.
Sweet. Yeah, it's definitely a big challenge that they set forward. And I found the date. I made these in April 2017, so it's been over a year.
Yeah,
over a year,
wow.
and I was just like, wow, like
People are
still,
still reading
checking
it.
them out, and yeah. So,
yeah, they've been some of the top pages on the site ever since the Mage Tower went up, so it's kind of cool to feel like, oh, today Havoc's the most popular guide, and then the next day, like, Rhett's the most popular guide, because I guess people really like those appearances.
So was your guide the one based on holy, or?
Holy and Disc one.
Holy and Disc, okay. Yes, there were some people who were linking me guides, and I was like, guys, I can't read the guide and heal. I'm gonna try and do it my way, and you guys can give me pointers if there is anything. But people did link anyways. I bet one of them was at least one of the links was probably your guide in that case.
Potentially.
Probably.
Yep. Yeah, it's tough streaming Mage Tower. Especially at this point, whenever everyone looked over your shoulder and like, oh no, this is how you do it. This is how you do it.
Yeah.
If you don't one shot it, it's
I did the Shadow Priest one, and people were like, no, you have to do Surrender to Madness. You have to do it this way. It's so easy. Just burst. And I was like, I've never played Shadow. What is my rotation? Like, I'm just pressing everything I see. It's like, doesn't matter. It'll work anyways. And it somehow actually did. I don't know how, but it did work.
Hey, you got the appearance, so.
Yeah. Indeed.
So that's kind of getting to the close of the questions we had for Jack. So maybe if Jack tells a little bit about like where people can find him, Annie can scan the chat to see if there's any like last minute burning questions for Jack before we all comment on the news. And if there's something, and we miss it, we can also answer it at the end of the show.
There was actually one question here which concerns the chest system. So apparently the weekly chest is giving up to 3 items, and there was someone who was wondering what your thoughts on that is.
I like being able to. I think 3 pieces is kind of a lot that you're going to be getting out of your chest every single week. I like being able to get obviously more rewards coming out of it. Gives it better chances, especially with no tier gear, that the items are not going to be pretty crappy or pretty bad. 3 pieces does seem like a lot, especially when we're going to be able to get, I guess, 385 pieces or 380 pieces after completing a plus 10. So, I mean, for example, last week I did a 10 and I got 3 different 380 pieces.
Oh, wow.
And I haven't even stepped into Mythic Grade. So it was like, wow, that's a lot of gear.
Yeah.
That's a lot of gear for one. And
wait, were you lucky, or are you supposed to get 3?
Well, you have the chance to get 3.
You have a chance to get, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so this most recent week I got 2.
Okay.
So you have 2 or 3 pieces, and it really starts filling up your gear slots extremely quickly. And I think as long as they balance the content around it, I think that'll be fine. But it's really gonna make, the pre-made group finder, for example, the requirements very high to get into like normal heroic raids, because they say, oh, well, you didn't do your
gear fast,
right?
Yeah, people are gonna gear really quickly and have very high expectations for what they want from people. And if Mythic Plus is not your cup of tea, then you're going to take much longer to gear up. So
that's a good point.
Oh.
Yeah, I was just
even
thinking...
more important why Mythic Plus is should be tuned and have testing.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
120 PvE realms.
Indeed. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I was just thinking, chance for more loot. I mean, I'm sure that's great, for people who may not be able to raid, but they like to do Mythic Plus. So it's great to hear from a different perspective of like, how that could actually be a bad thing. So That's good to hear. As I scan some more pictures, what pictures? As I scan the chat for more questions, not pictures, Jack, you can feel free to tell people where they can find you most of the time.
Yeah. So as you have that lovely overlay, I think it's here, maybe, if I didn't mess it up too bad. Yes, we're awesome. Right there, it's at AutomaticJak, exactly as spelled on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, basically everywhere. Love being able to have the same thing everywhere. But I am streaming full time, and I will be covering as much of the healers as possible. But of course, having Holy and Discipline Priest as my priority going into Battle for Azeroth, and of course, streaming progression as we're going forward as much as possible.
I see one question here, I guess, asking since, you are known to be a very, very good healer. If things on beta stay roughly the same, which healers look like they're going to be the best in Mythic Plus next expansion?
Without a doubt, Paladin and Druid, who were kind of the kings of Legion, are still going to be extremely powerful
it's going to be the same.
in Mythic Plus.
Yeah.
But I think Discipline Priest is going to be, is going to be the flavor of the month spec. If you check out any streamers, especially healer streamers, kind of like JB, for example, they are really focusing on Disc Priest now.
Okay.
I had actually made a video kind of ranking all the healers last month. And I was like, this priest is probably going to be the best. And everyone's like, you're biased. And then, like, now everybody's playing,
you are biased, yeah.
But now everybody's playing Disc Priest on beta right now. So, we'll see. But I do think this one is going to be, without a doubt, one of the top tier specs with Paladin and Druid very close to it.
Okay.
Because there is still the priority of survivability, where they brought down Paladin and Druid survivability with the nerfs, for example, to the extra 15% HP that Paladin got in Legion, that's removed. Druid Bear Form's HP increase has gotten nerfed, and Frenzied Regen's on the global cooldown. So there's a couple things here and there. And Priest being able to spam powered shields and increase them in strength with Rapture really ramps up their survivability. So there's a lot of really great tools that are coming in for Discipline, while the survivability gets a little bit more crunched together. As along with dungeons that are going to be less one-shotty and less Hirja one-shots if you don't have a defensive up or things like that, right?
Do you think Holy Priest lacks something like a key thing that makes it be a bit behind the others? And if so, can you think of one thing that it would definitely need a better buff for?
The biggest problem I have with Holy Priest is if you play the spec without any talents, it feels very close and almost exactly the same as if you play the spec with talents, right? The only really difference is like, oh, we'll take Binding Heal, or now when I cast this ability, it does something extra, right? But the interactions that you have with your spells and abilities with Holy Priest don't really change a lot with talents. And your talents specifically don't make you much more powerful in 5-mans, whereas Discipline, for example, has an entire row where you can get a damage increase, you could get this lump sum big heal with a cost associated with it, or you get like a slightly more consistent heal when you use Defensive Penance, and you can get all kinds of nice things that are added into Discipline going into BFA that are more focused on 5-mans. Holy Priest doesn't really have that, and their healing is very much focused on like Prayer of Mending or their Echo of Light Mastery, so it's a lot lighter healing. That way they're less tuned or less able to actually top off people rapidly unless they have, their 2-minute cooldown available.
Okay.
So I think they have too many passive abilities and too many passive talents that don't actually allow you to optimize yourself for Mythic Plus, whereas like Holy Paladin, has very clear-cut lines between Mythic Plus talents and raid type talents, right?
Right.
I noticed that too, actually, when I was learning Holy Priest. People mentioned this name, like this word, and I was like, what is that? I don't see that in my spell book. Oh, it's a passive. And it's like, and it happened like 3 times. It's like playing a warlock, I've never realized that passives can be so important. I don't check my spell book for passives, I check my abilities that I cast. But yeah, it was interesting to see. Serendipity, yeah, I think that was one of them. Chat just mentioned it. I was like, what is serendipity? I can't find it.
Well, it happens naturally. It just happens from casting your other abilities. And,
Yeah, that was fun to see. But yeah, I think we could probably jump into some beta stuff now.
Yeah.
Does that sound good?
Yeah, I'm happy. I mean, I've got like 3 weeks of beta stuff, and there was stuff I left out because there was just too much stuff.
Ooh.
So I'm trying to hit the main.
Your voice went down a bit.
Oh, the cat's in the other room.
Jack, could you say hi?
Hello. Yeah, I do
Okay.
hear it as well that she's a little bit lower.
Yeah, it's only Perk.
Mm.
This happens sometimes, and then she gets better after just a couple seconds.
Hmm.
I don't know why it
Yes.
happens. There we go. You're back.
It's funny. I just like hit the microphone and I don't know, it reset something. Maybe it, I don't know, goes to sleep or whatever. But okay, I'm glad we're
Abuse.
back. Yeah.
You're
It
back.
wasn't Brightpaw. He's in the other room. He's like, I don't play a disc priest. I'm a feral druid.
Uh-oh, drama. But yes, you were saying about beta. Indeed, we haven't had a show for a couple weeks, so, content's been stacking up.
Yep. So we're going to start off with one of the most important topics, and Jack is, obviously really into beta news, so he will stick with us for the rest of the show and chime in if he thinks something's interesting. So yeah, let's discuss the login screen and the title music before the storm.
Yeah.
So
Let me actually show you guys a preview straight away. I'll start off with showing you guys the picture. So this is how it looks like in case you haven't seen it yet. I actually love it. I think it looks very, like you mentioned, even the piece, the music, which is going to be played in a second, is called Before the Storm. And I feel like the picture properly depicts that as well.
the
And
Warcraft throwbacks in the visuals are very cool as well. How, some of the old games had that same kind of similar dented armor, Alliance versus Horde on the ground, and we're seeing it again in this login screen, and we've also seen it previously in the Orcs versus Humans and the Battle for Azeroth, like preview posters, as well as some of the past Warcraft promotional materials too. So definitely getting that like nostalgia of human versus orc, red versus blue fight going on here.
I see someone in the chat mentioning in the picture kind of looks like the storm already happened. That was my first thought as well. I was like, hey, looks like there's just corpses and like broken things on the ground. But if you take like a closer look, the walls behind it look, very much intact. The sky is showing a sort of it's kind of like it's bright. There's also like birds flying, which you'll see when the animation starts as well. It kind of gives an impression of like it's not over yet. The main storm is about to hit. That's how it feels like.
Like this does look pretty bad.
Yeah.
But it's sort of like it keeps getting worse.
Exactly. It's like this is just the beginning, okay? I mean, you may have lots of people dead, but it's not over yet. Here, let me play the animation so you can hear the music as well. Unfortunately, you guys won't be able to hear it in Skype, but you have your link as well.
Yeah.
All right. I think that was the full clip. As usual, first thought, Blizzard make amazing music. Like
Yes.
the chills
they
and
do.
everything from it, amazing. I absolutely love it. And we had some, so Perk and I discussed this a little bit before as well. Perk, do you want to cover it?
Sure.
With,
So from more of a music background, if you compare the introductory part to the expansion music in the past, it's really awesome as usual. This isn't like saying it's good or bad, but normally we hear that, very typical like Call to Arms, World of Warcraft theme at the start of the expansion theme music. And we did not get that here, which I think is really notable. We got lots of clips of like the Alliance and the Horde, and we heard some phrases that sounded like transitions that could go into that theme, but it never quite did. So it kind of leaves us hanging. And I think that is definitely deliberate, after how many expansions they don't have the theme music. And it kind of hints that, this is a reboot, or they're trying to challenge a lot of our conventions, like Teldrassil is always this place that like nothing happens to the Night Elves and now it's burned, or they're making us
Spoiler.
reconsider, you know,
Whoops.
like, oh, they're really trying to push, you know, both sides being morally gray, whether that is successful or not. They're really trying to challenge a lot of commonly held assumptions in WoW as to like what characters are safe, or you know, like what things will always be around forever, and who is, you know, good and evil, and who we can trust. So I think that it's definitely an interesting decision. I sort of wonder if in the expansion after, like that theme song will come back like really strong after we've dealt with whatever threats going on. I think it also symbolizes the secrecy of the plot. I mean, we know we're fighting each other, but I don't think that's the full expansion. Like, we don't know who the end boss is. And we've obviously known pretty clearly that the goal of Legion was to defeat the Legion, you know, or like the goal. But here it's like, well, it could go in many directions. And right now we're both kind of not being heroic. We're all kind of being petty and, you know, kind
lots of drama within the factions.
Being ashamed to be either faction. So maybe we don't deserve that heroic theme. Maybe we're really not being heroic, and we just have all these little themes fighting with each other.
And
also,
yeah, you go ahead, Jack.
Oh, sorry. It also kind of shows that we've kind of moved past like little misunderstandings. For example, like where Legion starts off like, hey, like we got to work together. We're all gonna die. Like, let's go into this. And they say like, oh, like the Alliance thought we betrayed them, but in reality, like we had our own problems going on. Like we didn't have a choice. And then like that actually gets everybody kind of pointed against each other. Whereas this is a lot more blunt. It's like I did the launch test event on beta, and I still have a lot of questions about the burning of Teldrassil. Like a lot of questions. But you know, it's a lot more blunted towards you know, we're not messing around here, and that's cool to see.
And a pointer on the music as well. As we mentioned, the Before the Storm theme of the picture itself, how, you know, we still see the sort of sunny, I don't know if it's a dawn or dusk, but it's it's kind of, you know, a bright sky to some extent. It's not completely dark, it's not completely gloomy, and the wall also looks intact, doesn't look like it's been destroyed or anything like that. And the music also having, or lacking rather, those very heavy you know, music like trumpets kind of that we normally hear in all the previous expansions, that being gone also kind of depicts a feeling of before the storm, or the calm before the storm. And I think that's the kind of feeling that they're trying to convey with the login screen, and I like it. And I think, like Perk said, it also does give a little bit of uncertainty of like what is actually going on, like who is the big enemy here. I mean, we can't go through the whole expansion and be like, yeah, like the whole expansion is about defeating the Horde. I mean, at the end of the day, Horde will still be there, right? It's not like next expansion the Horde is gone.
Faction, and it's like, oh, I just happened to pick the losing faction.
Yeah. Sorry, you picked the faction which is no longer available, so bye. Can no longer play the game. No, like we don't really know. I mean, obviously we have ideas of old gods and things like that, but it's things that are not 100% clear from the login screen itself, and it's cool. It's like you know, an excitement of showing that we don't really know what's gonna happen.
Especially because, you know, as much as we love sites like Wowhead, you know, we also get everything kind of thrown at us at the beginning, where we're saying like, oh, well, like we know everything now, like, or if you want to be able to find out the spoilers, all the information is there for you, right? Whereas they're really just taking a lot of time kind of teasing us throughout all of this, you know. So it's gonna be kind of I don't want to say annoying, but it'd be kind of tough when I'm first leveling, because I have a strong desire to level as fast as possible, but I really want to see all these cinematics and like take my time being able to like see where they fill in the rest of the story. So we'll see.
So yeah, we'll circle back to the burning of Teldrassil in the spoiler section, because we have a ton of questions there as well. But first we're going to share some new models and images, which maybe aren't as heavy, but people always love images, so you know, crowd pleaser section of the show. First up, we got this really awesome water elemental. Everyone loved this. I just posted a little GIF and a little boring caption. I was like, oh my god, I love it. It's so watery. It's so beautiful. I love all the colors. So yeah, Frost Mages and Elementals in Azeroth now have a new appearance. And I believe at the, like, maybe 2 weeks ago, there was a version that was not as high resolution, and it kind of looked like it had legs.
Here,
Yeah.
I'll show you that one as well. There.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at first I was thinking like, wait, why is there different colors for the water elemental? And then I realized, of course, they could be water elementals outside, like in the world.
It would be cool if you could glyph and it would change color.
Oh yeah,
I like that.
Yeah,
I
that's
like
a good
that,
idea. Yeah, that's a good idea actually. But yeah, I like it. It does look like you mentioned more watery and just more as it should look, rather than a bit sort of static. So I think that's awesome.
A lot of people really want that dark blue one as some sort of glyph. So here's hoping everyone love the water elemental. Blizzard, please add something. We also got an updated Warfront loading screen. We know in 7.3.5 there was all that controversy when Zappy Boy was in the loading screen and then the art style changed and he was taken out. And we kind of have a similar thing here where the old loading screen had these two orcs kind of in some detail, and there was like a detailed Alliance warship flying in the background and lots of smoke and fire. And in the new screen, the sky is more clear. We see more of a Arathi, and the orc with the shield is missing. So, two different versions. I kind of prefer the old one, but that's just me.
I think I have to say the same. I feel like I liked all the different details in the sky, and it feels more chaotic. Wait, let me go back to the old one. Here, it looks more chaotic, looks more like war is happening, and I like how the ship is more detailed. Yeah, so I think I would also say that the old one looks better. What do you think, Jack? Have you been able to see the pictures?
Yeah. At first, I thought I really did like the new one, but now that you mentioned all the small details, I think it kind of stands out, especially when you see a screen so many times. You want to kind of keep on picking out little things of like, oh, I didn't even look at that, right?
Yeah.
I do like the old one. It kind of changed my mind on that one.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah,
I like how the smoke is like taking over the top half. It really puts the war in Warfront. It looks a lot more dangerous.
I guess the only thing it would be missing then is the details of Arathi in the background. So I guess that's the only part it's missing. But yeah, it looks more chaotic, which I think looks good and fits.
Which seems to be with the theme of Warfronts, right?
Yeah. Looks like chat likes the new one.
Yeah.
It's also like, if you're fighting this detail thing, like, don't you want to have your party with you? I mean, would you really be an orc just facing down the gunship by your own with two axes? Like, I don't think so.
Yeah.
At least, you want the tank in the front holding the arrows up with the shield.
Yeah, that's a good point too. I think in the picture when there's two of them, it kind of gives the impression that, there's more of them. Somewhere around, whereas the alone one kind of looks like maybe he's a hero of his own.
Yeah. Like the Mean Alliance gunship is gunning down the solitary orc.
Yeah.
This next image, it's very mysterious, but kind of have a lot to say about it. There's a texture for an in-game shop game time bundle. The name is just Shop Game Time Bundle, and we can see a W with 180 plus something, we assume amount or a pet will go there. And we don't know anything about this, but it seems that this could be maybe a new and improved version of the annual pass, or what the Chinese servers got when they got, Shuzhen. Shuzhen for them, I think, was 180 days of game time. So, this is interesting. I mean, maybe Blizzard could do this every 6 months and, keep people subscribing to get some added value, maybe add some mount. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure maybe it'll be a cloud. Kitsuki cloud.
Yeah, the giveaway or the reward for being subscribed for 6 months is a cloud.
Yeah.
Maybe that you can fly on.
Yeah.
They give it to monks, right?
Yeah.
But I think that this could help with subscriber numbers if they ever wanted to make that public again, or whenever they do the press releases saying, X many players are subscribed currently. Something like the bundles could, sweeten the deal, especially when other games are trying to get more creative with things like bundles. Currently, I believe the 180 days is the cheapest option out of all the options, but it is the largest amount of money up front, which can make some people reconsider. But if you say, oh, well, it's 180 plus amount, then it can suddenly become a more interesting deal.
Yeah, definitely. Because when people go for 1 month, they're like, oh, well, maybe like next month I decide to take a 1 month break, and then, I save money. But then if there's an extra reward onto it, then it's like, well, I will probably, end up being sub for 6 months anyways. So, might as well go for this reward as it's available. Yeah. I think the last time we were given a reward in EU, or I think EU NA together, was it the Teriel's Charger?
Yeah, for the Miss annual pack, which also gave you
Diablo.
You got Diablo or something, and then you got a year of time, and then you also got guaranteed access to the beta at some point.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, I think that was the last time, and that one was 360 days or 1 year, so it was a bit longer than that. But yeah, I guess we'll see. See what they've got hidden, planned for us.
This one would be great if the cat was around, but he's not. Come on, Brightpaw. Come on, jump up onto the desk. Come on.
Maybe Brightpaw knows.
About you.
Maybe it's a cat reward.
Yep. We're talking about cats for the next topic. Look at this cat. We're discussing feral druids, Brightpaw.
Coming up, the new updated animations for feral druids in cat form.
Yep.
Let me get the video up and running so you guys can see it. So Brightpaw can see it too.
Yeah.
Let's see. It's right here. And it's not working.
Oh no! What did you do, Brightpaw?
Okay. I was joking. It works. Okay, let's go. Let's check it out. So, I don't think the music in the video should be too loud, so we can talk about it as it's going. The top one that you can see is the updated version, which is currently on beta, and the bottom one is what is currently on live games.
Yep. So, if you don't own a cat, these may look similar, but if you do own a cat, it may be more obvious that their animation have changed. If you look at the way the back arches, the live version is more like a little house cat, but the beta version is more like a wild cat stalking its prey. Don't you agree, Brightpaw?
I never knew that they like move differently.
Yep.
Yeah. If you look at the top one, the body of the cat is longer when it reaches like full.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really cool.
So, and we've had Brightpaw being a willing subject, showing how a cat moves. Now he's on the desk again. But yeah, obviously I'm a fan of cat forms getting some more, love and attention. Yeah, I'm just a fan in general of all the cat updates we've gotten in BFA, from the different cat bodies to the little cat houses, the crazy cat lady, and now druid forms get some attention too.
And I think druid forms in general have been really exciting in beta, like, because we have all these really cool forms with the different new races and stuff. I think druids are really happy, or they should be, at least.
I was just very excited when we saw the Zandalari druid animations.
Oh, yeah.
And all the alliance. I mean, I'm a horde player, so all the alliance players are just like, whoa, like we're gonna get nothing out of this. It's horrible. And they're like, and then we're like, oh, by the way, it's Kultiran humans. And I was like, wow, this is actually really cool.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
I wasn't expecting that at all. Like, I was expecting Zandalari. Well, maybe not expecting. That's a bit hard. But I was not too surprised that they got really cool looking forms. And then Kultiran came out, and I was like, whoa, I didn't expect that. I thought the Kultiran ones would just look like regular druids, but they've got some cool looks going on as well.
Yeah, and Blizzard's really building up their lore as well. So it's not just like, oh, I guess they'll be Wicker, but it's like, oh, it makes sense that they have this like Druze lore, and their magic from the earth comes with this elaborate backstory, and it's tied to like Jaina and like Waycrest Manor and various corruption So I think, I think they've done a good job building it out so it's not just like, oh, culture as humans version 2.0, the
Yeah.
end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They make it a lot more natural.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Indeed. The last
Uh,
sort of model update that we have touches something that we actually showed you guys in the past. We had the, let me get the pictures out. We have the Uther statue updated, and this raises a lot of questions, like why is this place being so updated? How important will this place be in BFA? Here, let me get there we go. So we showed you guys the area around the statue all being updated. It's the walkway, it's inside it, it's outside, it's the whole thing. And now the statue itself has gone through a major update, and I think it looks so much better than before. You can see in the picture right now, for example, how the sunlight, it looks a lot more natural, touching the statue and everything. It looks beautiful.
Yeah,
Gorgeous.
it looks gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So my thoughts is that yes, it will play a role. And I think Arthas is still very much on Sylvanas' mind after the events of Before the Storm, with the interactions she's had with Arthas' sister, and just the feelings that evokes in her, and like it's always on her mind. Like, was this the path she chose because what Arthas did to her? And Uther, being so key to Arthas' story, I think he's going to. I think he'll definitely play a role as we have Sylvanas' story develop more in future 8.0 patches. And on the Alliance side, another important character from the Lich King also has a family member in battle for Azeroth. So I think all the signs are pointing towards this being like a story in 8.1 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of thinking of something maybe a little bit darker. Like, this is a very bright and beautiful picture and very happy. But what I mean, the Death Knight questline tried to get us to resurrect Tyrion Fordring to no avail. But what if Sylvanas just goes and just tries to res Uther, and makes this very beautiful updated little tomb, just like desecrates everything, like. I mean, we're kind of going all in. We're kind of going all in. So.
Right. I like to think he would fight back, because after the Shadowborn quest line, the ghost talks to you. So.
That's right. That's right.
I hope he wouldn't be a pushover.
Yeah.
So. I wonder what he thinks of Ashbringer being destroyed with the artifact instability.
Yeah.
Like Tyrion being like, "Oh man, like why did you screw up our weapon?" Although again, it had already had a dark history, but yeah. So to be continued, hopefully in a future patch as we learn more about this area. So we also wanted to touch on some class changes. We don't really get super into like technical changes and tuning, because that's more what the guide writers do in their articles. But we do try to cover big things like, like this has a new animation, or this is something that is an interesting racial. So we just wanted to highlight a few interesting things. The first is that there are 10 more stable slots for hunters, so you can have 5 active pets and then 60 pets in storage. Which people are saying is good, but they're also like, can this just be a real collection system? Because like, I want to spend my time in game collecting pets. Like, I want to do more things in game, Blizzard. Like, please let me do more things in game.
Like, on one side, I'm like, yeah, of course, put in some kind of tab and then they can collect all of them. But at the same time, I'm like, well, then I'm missing out because I'm not a hunter. But I mean, it is still, I think the collection aspect of World of Warcraft has definitely grown. I think we've got, appearances tab. We've got, I remember when holding tabards was also a big problem, because so people were like, the ones that are not that annoying to buy again, just sell them, because then you can buy them whenever just from the vendors. So being able to have everything in like, a nice sort of collection menu is great. And I could imagine that for hunters as well, it would be great if they just had some kind of, some kind of special UI, which allows them to have as many pets as possible.
Yeah. This next topic, we actually got more notes in right before right before the show started. The Dark Iron Mole Machine works. It takes you, at the time, it takes you to Stormwind and Ironforge. It just pops up and you can click to it at either place. And then we learned today that a recent beta build expanded it to where it can also take you to Shadowforge City, which is the little starting area, Dark Iron Dwarf only zone. And the part that's new was the Shadowforge City, and we, went all through the zone. We took pictures of it today. It looks pretty cool. Like, Mara's hanging out. The daughter of Phineas Starkfire, the architect, is hanging out. You can go to the Grim Guzzler. There's even like an NPC doing tricks with Gorehound puppies, which is super cute. So yeah, mystery of the Dark Iron Mole Machine solved. I know some people were thinking, oh, will the Mole Machine just take you to a random place on Azeroth? But it actually, does have some useful value. It can take you to one of the 2 major cities in Eastern Kingdoms.
I actually have a clip of it. I could show it.
Sure.
All right, let's go to it. It shows how the Dark Iron Dwarf is summoning the thing, and then it gets the option of going to Ironforge or Stormwind. In this particular clip, it goes straight to Stormwind and lands in Dwarven District in Stormwind. I think it's a pretty cool ability.
That's awesome.
Yeah, indeed, it's awesome. And, being able to travel to the 2 most important cities is really useful. Do we know how long the cooldown is for it?
Yes. 1 second.
Maybe like
after
a couple
this
hours?
class section, I think it's... Come on, page. It's just taking a second. I want to say it's something like 30 minutes.
Okay.
The site's getting updated for beta, so it's just like a little slow as we like that.
There's other people in the chat mentioning 30 minutes, so it must be right then.
Oh, yeah.
And another I don't know if you mentioned it when you introduced it, but the another cool thing is that, your party members can also use it. So it's not just for yourself.
I think they removed that.
Really?
Yeah, because when we were testing, we're like, oh, can everyone go to Shadowforge City? It's like, no. So.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Never mind then. Fake news.
Yeah.
Don't listen to me.
But another cool thing is we have Warlock animations, and Annie's probably excited about them.
I love
so
it.
good.
How so many new Warlock stuff, so many new animations. Let me get the first one up for you guys to see. So this one is a simple one. It's basically the summoning animation for the different demons.
You're in trouble now.
You can see all of them.
I hope it was good for you.
You cannot command me.
There we go. And there should be one more, but it's not showing for me.
Yeah. There should be Soulwell, Ritual of Summoning, Demonic Demon Summons, I think.
Wait, I think it's... Yeah, okay, I found it. Here it is. So the second one is this one. Boom. There you go. So it's basically casting the Soulwell. Looks different now. And it seems like the Soulwell itself also has changed animation, because it keeps having this sort of swirly fell looking thing, like moving around it. I think it looks really cool.
Well, I didn't even notice it before. It also kind of has like the Hellstone just kind of rising above it. It's almost like you're just grabbing it from the top of the well.
Oh, yeah. Good point.
It also used to have a hitbox up until a couple days ago. So you could actually jump on top of it.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, but then they took it away.
Yeah.
Because people were using it to, do little dungeon skips and all kinds of stuff.
Block people from going through a door.
Yeah, so I think the Summoning Stone also has a hitbox. I'm not sure if it still does or not, but like you could jump on the Soulwell, then jump on the Summoning Portal, then jump up somewhere else. So
Oh wow.
I like the idea.
So it's like
but,
a whole stairs of levels.
Yeah, I mean, that would have been very interesting to see in like the MDI where you just
Oh,
like,
yeah.
now they're doing the Warlock
Mhm.
stairs, like you just hop up.
And
So-
the first question that popped into my head was, okay, well, so well being updated. What about the glyph? Does it still exist? And it seems like it still does. It's still gonna. I'm like showing some background that should not be there. There we go. So that's cool because I love this glyph. I feel like the Solwell. Maybe the new one wouldn't need to have it as much because the new one actually looks pretty cool. But the old one, I feel like it looks a bit boring. So I
Mandatory.
always go around with this glyph. So that's good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were saying, Perk?
Oh, so I just typed something in the notes. This beta build that my coworkers are handling actually has something kind of useful that we
Okay.
might want to cover. But yeah, just as a shout out before we wrap up the class section, Jack and the other writers are working very hard on their pre-patch guides and summaries of what has changed and if you should be concerned or not. So definitely check that out, and Jack can testify. We nag the writers constantly about ways to improve.
That's right. That's right.
Oh,
Well
apparently
worth it.
there was one more update here. This
Oh,
one. Last
okay.
one.
All right.
The summon portal. Oh, wow, that actually looks really cool.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I didn't see this one before. I just saw it now. It's got like purple things moving at all times now. It looks a lot better than before.
Yep.
Wait, it's like a it's a body.
Yeah.
Oh
Yep.
wow! And the way it
Mhm.
goes down as well. Oh, that looked amazing.
Yep. That's what I always kind of point to when people are like, "Oh, like my class doesn't have any new animations or whatever." I'm just like, when you see them, you'll be like really impressed. Like, I mean, Priest had to
Right.
wait a while, nowhere near as long as Warlocks had to wait, right? But like once the Priest animations came out, I was just like, yes,
Oh,
they're
yeah.
so good.
Uh-huh. Yeah, even when I was playing Priest during the Mage Tower, I like random people would just like comment like, "Oh my god, I really love these animations.
Yep,
They look so good."
so good.
Yeah. So what I have to share is the bearer of bad news in this build, which has hit during the show, build
Ooh.
27004. The experience required to level up has been increased by 15% per level. So
From 110?
yeah, from 110 to 120.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It kind of makes
Yeah.
sense. Like
Right.
I was hearing people getting it down to like 6 hours, 6.5 hours to hit max. So
Yep.
Okay.
I'm not too terribly surprised.
yeah,
yeah.
in that case it's not too surprising.
And the artifact power per level on the Heart of Azeroth has also increased past level 9, and each level past level 9 has been increased by at least 35%. So
Oh, that's a big difference.
Yeah. So I guess, when you start getting into like levels associated with endgame or max level content, they don't want it to be, easily grindable, I guess,
Yeah.
or as easily. So, yeah, no, apparently there were 2 spell changes, nothing too important, but that was a big news from the build, the experience, and artifact power for the Azurite tweak.
Okay. Hashtag live news.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Or he's going to be one of those during the show.
Mm-hmm. Live show with live news.
Yeah. So for this next part, we probably want to put the spoiler tag up, because it's,
Let me get that in a second. It's like little things that... There we go.
Yep.
Let's see if it fits. Yeah, fits perfect. I was like, not sure if it's going to cover Jack's head. No, it fits perfectly. All right, so spoiler tag is up because now we will be going into lore. And lore
Yeah.
usually means that there is spoilers.
Mm-hmm. So the second part of the Burning of Teldrassil questline was available on the PTR for both the Alliance and the Horde, and we actually now see Teldrassil in flames, but we still don't know who started the fire.
Mm-hmm. Still questions. Who is
Answered
it?
some questions and then raised a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
So what stands out to me, besides the fire, is I really think that the whole Sour Fang throwing the axe and backstabbing Valkyrian needs some animation work. Like maybe
Yeah.
in-game cinematic depicting that, because it just looks like an orc is, I don't know, pulling some like mythic trash bag at range.
Yeah.
A little
Yeah.
basic. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks so I don't know, is underwhelming the word? It looks
Yeah.
like a mistake almost, like he just, random throw and that, knocked him out.
Yeah.
And I'm also confused about it because in that chapter they shared from the collector's edition novella, they're talking about how like Malfurion backed Sourfang into an inn, and then he made the inn collapse on his head, and then Malfurion started fighting Sylvanas, and like Sourfang thought he was going to die. And I mean, he seems to be pretty alive and well, and I don't see any inn or destroyed
I think he
city.
even runs, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Like he
Yeah,
runs
he's
towards
like- yeah.
Malfurion.
Yeah, so something just seems off there. I don't know if they fought and didn't work out and they came back again, but it doesn't really seem to fit into what we've learned so far, how he nearly died.
The other thing that's interesting is when I did it, it was like you're running along with Sourfang, and you just come into picture where you're able to see Sylvanas and Malfurion, and they're kind of just standing there, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh my God, they're fighting!" and he just like throws it, right? Whereas, like, there didn't seem to be like an actual threat to Sylvanas at all, or I don't think that.
good
maybe,
point.
maybe she was like, I don't know. They were like very far apart. It wasn't like he was standing over her ready to like hit the killing blow or anything. It was like, they're about to fight. Like, let me help. And he's like, oh, I'm so sad that I did that. Like, oh gosh.
Another thing which would be much better
convincing
depicted
it
in a
is.
cinematic.
Yeah, so maybe there's something there that we missed or something. I don't know. It was a little weird.
All we hear with Sourfang is like, oh, like I can't believe Sylvanas, or like, leave me in this prison cell, honor, and it's like, why did you decide to just help her if you hate her so much? And
Yeah, that's her.
Yeah.
I actually have a short clip of the part when he throws the. I don't know if it's an axe or something, so I'll quickly show you guys
yeah.
in case you haven't seen it.
The war chief faces
running
Storm
in?
Rage alone. I must.
Sourfang coming in.
Okay.
Sour Fang.
An audience.
And that's it.
Stay still, Alliance dog. Watch
Okay,
me.
so I guess she is like
strike
kneeling
down one
and
of your
was being
greatest
hit by a
heroes.
rat.
Yeah, it's just,
It is kind of hard to see though.
more stuff
Yeah.
surrounding it.
I did it twice and I didn't see it until then.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the other thing is, so we still don't know who sets the tree on fire. On the Alliance side, it's like Tehran takes Malfurion away, and she's like, "Oh, make sure the transition's peaceful," and we go, and the tree's already on fire, so that didn't work out.
Yeah.
And then on the Horde side, I have a theory based on what I saw on the Horde side, and it's you meet Sourfang after he decides not to kill Malfurion, and him and Sylvanas are staring at Teldrassil, and it's not burning. And Captain Dalaran, who is one of the night elves we help as a quest giver, is kneeling and is still alive. And then there's a placeholder cutscene, and we come back, and Teldrassil is on fire, and the night elf is dead. So my belief with how Blizzard is trying to make both sides the same is that maybe in this cutscene, Sylvanas would say, "Oh, Teldrassil is within reach with Malfurion dead, and will break the will of your people." And then Captain Dalaran's like, "No, this must not be," and tries to I don't know, fight with Sylvanas, and somehow an arrow is fired inadvertently, and then stuff blows up by accident. But I think they're gonna try to make it seem like the night elf was involved somehow in it blowing up. I don't think that Sylvanas will just execute her and then throw a flamethrower at the city. I think that maybe the night elf will be like, "No, it's better if things are destroyed than to be under you," or if she's with her last breath is trying to knock Sylvanas off balance and something unexpected happens.
That's interesting, because that would help the idea of how Blizzard wants to not always portray the Horde as the bad ones, and we've seen a lot in all these different little story spoilers that we've seen in whether it's the books or the cutscenes or whatever the material that we have so far. Basically, it points a lot towards Sylvanas being the bad one, the one who wants to be super aggressive, and then Anduin wanting peace and just for people to live together and peacefully. So I think having something like that would be a crazy Well, it would also, I mean, it would be unexpected, number one, and also bring a little bit more shadow onto the Alliance in a way. Or at least maybe not bring shadow to Alliance, but bring less shadow to the Horde, you know, like give them a little bit less blame.
But they did, like, attack Teldrassil.
They did.
And they did want to kill Malfurion, and then Sourfang was Mr. Honor's like, let me just casually axe toss Malfurion. So, I mean, they did kind of coerce the Alliance into this unideal position.
I mean, definitely, but it's still a huge difference if it's Sylvanas or if it's not Sylvanas, because
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, also the interesting thing is they never, like the Horde at least, never wanted to actually burn down Teldrassil because they wanted to make sure that they were able to hold it so they could hold any Azerite from coming in through Silithus, right? Going all the way around, I guess from the top, going through Nordrassil Teldrassil, going through Teldrassil onto the Eastern Kingdoms, right? So
That's
burning it wasn't.
By the way, like,
what's that? Why couldn't they go south? Right?
Yeah,
it's like, yeah. Like, I mean, I guess they need to refuel or something. I don't know. They don't have magic, whatever. But like, let's say we're playing the game, you know, it's like, okay, well, we have to go through here in order to get the Azerite, and why would we burn it down? So. Yeah, it was weird.
Oh, so you mean like it's not 100% in the Horde's advantage to have it burned down either?
Yeah. Right. I mean, it doesn't give them any leverage
when
they just have like a pile of charred trees and like no resistance, right? Where they say, oh, if you come like, and again, I guess this is assuming that like the Zandalar and Kultiran Islands aren't really discovered to be full of Azerite yet. Where it's like, well, we know where all of this is coming from, so if we have control over it, we're set, and that's all we want.
Right. It also undermines Sylvanas as a general if she's motivating the troops like, oh, we're going to take this over and like it'll be great and we'll expand our empire, and then it's like, oh, actually under her watch that's not very
that won't be very good for her. It's like, actually I got a little bit too angry, so I decided to, you know, just throw this matchstick, and it happened to burn down, you know.
Everything.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
I wonder when we'll find out.
I'm curious because we have those collector's edition boxes which will have the novella in them. So are we going, when can people start getting them shipped if they pre-ordered that? And Blizzard's going to put those novellas on the website as well. So maybe my guess is that this will be staggered. They'll purposely make it so you can't data mine or see the cinematic whenever the pre-patch hits. I don't know when it is. But the week after, like, say, if the pre-patch is, say, the 17th, and then the next week's the 24th, on the 24th, it will be like, oh, you know, we're putting up the cinematic and these novellas for you to read, and this is when the content unlocks when you can see it. So they won't want it spoiled by data mining in advance, and then Blizzard can kind of control the narrative and make it into, like, a big reveal and cinematic event.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, it's really sad. All I play are Night Elves, so I'm like, oh, I don't want to see this. It's like so traumatic. But yeah, that's basically what we have with Teldrassil. One thing I wanted to mention is that if people are curious, there's no leveling component to this. There's no, like, when you unlock the world quest, you can do stuff repeatedly if you're low level, like the Legion build up, which I thought was interesting and kind of a little disappointing. But there you have it.
So these Burning of Teldrassil quest lines, would that be in the pre-patch?
Yeah, so I think the first part, which we covered like a month ago, that will be like week 1 of the pre-patch, and then the second bit will be like week 2 of the pre-patch, and anyone can do it. You don't need to buy BFA.
Sweet.
And apparently at the end of, this is not really spoiler related, more like a game reward related, you get the mount. Yeah.
Oh, really?
The Alliance get the Hippogriff, and the Horde get the Plague Bat.
Alliance got the short end of the stick on this one. The Plague Bat is amazing. Oh, it's so good.
If you're like an old school Alliance player, when Hippogriffs were very difficult to get and they weren't even in game at one point, like, you were thrilled about, oh my god, this Hippogriff I always wanted, that looks like the Teldrassil one is available, so. But, you know.
It's a
Yeah,
really cool bat.
I think bats are pretty cool,
It's a
have to be honest.
recolored demon hunter Velbat.
I
Well,
like it.
if you're not a demon hunter, it's
Yeah.
Yeah,
new and
exactly.
cool. But if you are, I guess it's not that exciting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the other major storyline that we played through was Jaina Proudmoore's questline in Kulturas, and we've covered a lot of this through data mine broadcast text, but it's another thing to actually see it in game. And this is a pretty elaborate questline for Jaina. And if you have missed any of our summaries, basically Lady Ashvane, who is working with Queen Ashara and is trying to overthrow Jaina's mom, decides that when Jaina comes to ask Kulturas for assistance, she should instead be exiled. And she sends her to this really bad place, which is basically, it's basically where like the souls of the Druce are like sucking your will to live, and it's like you just keep hearing about like all your regrets in your head or just like confronting you, and it's a really horrible place. After Lady Ashvane betrays Catherine's mom and she's reflecting on things, she's like, hey, maybe Jaina isn't so bad after all in what she was thinking. I should try to save her. I keep having visions that she's being tortured. So they go on this long quest line. You try to find Jaina. You realize that she keeps being moved from like prison to prison, and she's like just like very difficult to get to. It's like the magic's getting involved. The culture on Druids are getting involved. And finally, you get to Drustvar, and you get to Thros the Blighted Lands, which is where Jaina is being held, and she keeps hearing like a spirit of Varian saying that like she was too peaceful, and Ronan saying that she's like not good at taking care of the Kirin Tor, and her father is saying that, you know, she made the wrong choice and shouldn't have helped the Horde. And it's pretty touching because you do save Jaina, and there is a reunion with her, and her mother is also confronting some prejudices as well, like, no, Jaina, like, you were right to be idealistic or look for peace. Like, your father was too, you know, warmongering. Like, I should have realized that sooner. And it's an interesting character arc. I really like it because a lot of what we see with Jaina has taken place off screen, and I think people have gotten very confused about her character. Like, Theramore, and Theramore, we saw some of that in game, but the build-up took place in a book. And then in War Crimes leading into Warlords, Jaina had to testify as to what happened to Theramore, and then there was another attempt on her life, and she nearly died. But all of that you don't see in game, so a lot of people don't really understand the emotional impact that can make someone like Jaina like very distrustful of the Horde, or, you know, very easy to snap. Like, you know, like, that sounds really horrible, having to testify about why your, you know, country got blown up and then had that person murder you. It sounds pretty terrible, but you don't have any of that referenced in game. So I hope people understand Jaina's character and some of the conflicting decisions that she's had to make better, and get an insight into her character from this quest line.
I noticed in the screenshots of Jaina, and I think the area is called Thros. It's she's depicted as a child. Is that because it's going back into her, you know, her bad memories of back then, or is it just to depict how like powerless and small she is?
It's meant to depict, I believe, how small she is. Her mom at one point says, you know, when Jaina was little, when she was scared, she would always hide. So she's trying to draw Jaina out of hiding. And then the spirit of Jaina as a child is being tormented by all of these, like, you know, a fake version of Ronan, being like, you were terrible, I shouldn't have died for you, type of thing. So it's symbolizing how scared Jaina feels.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really like this quest line. I also thought it was cool how you learn more about the Kulturan druid type of magic. There's someone named Ulfar, the High Thorn Speaker. We need his druidic help to reach the Blighted Lands because like that area is locked with magic. And we don't have Kulturan druids quite yet on the beta, but it helps set up their lore so they don't just sort of come out of nowhere. And I was like, oh, you know, this is how their magic can be used for good and, you know, and evil, and their unique brand that they bring to druidism. So if you're like, oh, what's the Horde equivalent? There appears to be something with Talanji and Vol'jin, which I think we covered last show, where like the spirit of Vol'jin is advising Talanji, and then at some point she is giving inspirational speeches to her people. And then there's also the bit, of course, where Zul and like Gahun are trying to invade Zuldazar. So there's like Zuldazar forever on one side, and then there's the pride of Kulturas and rescuing Jaina on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
I also think it's really cool how there's a parallel between the daughters and the rulers. So you have Talanji disagreeing with her father, thinking he's too old-fashioned. He doesn't like the Horde. He relies too much on Zul, and it turns out that she's correct.
Mm-hmm.
And at the start, you're like, wow, like Zuldazar, it's all gold. It's all, they seem to have things pretty well. Talanji blew up a ship. They've got the Loa helping them. They beat the Alliance. The father's doing well. And then at the end of the storyline, it doesn't look so certain for the Horde since, they lost some of their Loa and King Rastakhan's very old. While on the Alliance side, it starts off really badly where, Jaina disagrees with her mom and she gets exiled.
Yeah.
So that starts off really badly, and then Borealis is on fire. But at the end of the storyline, Jaina and her mom are united, working together. Jaina's mom does not seem to be in any danger of being, called away by a Loa, to die or anything like Rastakhan is. And they seem to be just sort of like in a better place strategically than the Horde side, where they almost maybe seemed overconfident, and then, like the council turned on them, and like Razan was killed, who's sort of like an ace in their pocket, always helping the Zandalari, and King Rastakhan keeps being reminded that his time is nearly up. So I think it's some parallels and an interesting like power reversal by the end of the storyline.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The Zandalari, especially kind of like you mentioned, where everything seems like they have everything together. And right as the tide starts shifting, where you see Zul turning on people, it also kind of coincides with all the newcomers are here, because you have to do the quest where it's like, oh wow, the docks are kind of like taken over by all these different troll tribes, and now we're having all these outsiders all over the place, and they start blaming that stuff on us, right? Where it's like, hey, we just kind of got here. We have to actually fix all these problems, So it's a nice difference in storylines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. One quick note I forgot to put in is that in the finale to Jaina, we learned that Talia, who was one of the main Alliance and BC's quest givers, we get hints early on that her father was someone important in Stormwind, but at the end of the storyline, where Anduin is thanking us for finding Jaina and saving Kulturas, and now Catherine wants to work with the Alliance. Talia reveals that she is the daughter of Bolvar Fordragon.
Yeah.
So, wow. So we've got, the Lich King's daughter, working for the Alliance. I'm sure Sylvanas will be thrilled to learn if she, reacted so poorly to Arthas' sister showing up in Before the Storm.
Mm-hmm. And also the reaction of, because Talia doesn't know. Right?
No, she has no idea. I mean, because when we killed the Lich King, it was Tyrion was prepared to pick up the helmet and wear it, so the Scourge won wild, and instead Bolvar decided to, because he's like, I'm too tortured beyond recognition, just let me be the Lich King, and Tyrion's like, nobody must know of this.
Yep.
So nobody knows of that.
I think there were words from Talia, something like like my dad or my father passed away in the I don't know, the war back in Ice Crown or something like that. So it sounded like he's gone basically, and now it's gonna be interesting. I don't know if it was in this part of the lore, but at some point we also hear Anduin actually inviting her over, and Anduin also has history with her father as well, so that kind of connects them in that way. And it's gonna be interesting. Is the word gonna go out? Is she gonna find out? What's gonna happen?
Right, and with how Sylvanas is always trying to take over. It does things kind of like the Lich King with, the blight and raising the soldiers as skeletons.
Yeah.
And how she got control of the Valkyr from the Lich King. It's sort of like, is she gonna take more of like a Lich Queen role type on? Are they gonna, I don't know, I can always picture something crazy where like they're trying to appeal to like the Lich King and Bolvar to like get him on their side to battle Sylvanas. If she's acting
Lich
like
Queen.
a Lich Queen. And that could tie well into Uther's tomb. We got all the major players.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Very good point.
Well, it's a nice side story that they can always kind of pull out of their pocket later on and be like, oh, remember this, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I think we're about done with the spoilers. And then we got some highlights from an interview with Ian and Forbes, as well as some armor transmog to cover before I get into the live news.
Spoiler tag on?
Yep.
So we're ready. So Ian had, I believe this interview was straight after the Q&A?
Yeah, it was 7 days ago.
7 days ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was an interview that he had with Forbes, and they were talking about a few different things. I believe the interview was split in two. And he just answered further questions on the different topics that was touched on the Q&A, and I believe a few other things as well. And there were some interesting things that were mentioned. For example, I believe was this the first time that he mentioned about Lordaeron being available for those purchasing BFA?
Time. Yeah.
Maybe you want to present it? I think you know a bit more about the interview.
Sure. So Ian revealed, we were just covering Teldrassil before, but Ian revealed that part of Teldrassil available to everyone day one of the pre-patch, another part of Teldrassil available like a week or two after the pre-patch, available to everyone. Battle for Lordaeron, you can start doing it August 6th if you have BFA purchased.
That's it.
So that will be a BFA only piece of content. Which a lot of people are like, wow, like where did this come out of the blue? Like I want to do this as well without buying it. So if you want to do it at any point, you need to buy it, and if you get a little early access. He also clarified, like I mentioned in the spoiler section, that there's going to be no leveling component, which I think is a little weird because that was like really huge leading up to Legion, with the demonic invasions and the scaling tech. A lot of people really enjoy doing them and getting gear for their alts, but he says there's no real leveling component this time around.
It's kind of funny. The invasions especially, like it really started building up the hype of like, something's
really
going bad like real quick.
Yeah. So I thought that was a little weird. And then the third point, I think the hardcore profession people already knew this, but if you didn't, he clarified how professions work in BFA. So for example, a lot of people know that like, oh, there's a stat squish, like the cap is 150, not 800, but it's a little more nuanced than that. Basically each expansion has a little bar. So like you can level 0 to 150 with Cool Tiras recipes, or like 0 to 100 for Legion recipes, or like 0 to 50 with like Wrath recipes. So it's all different bars, and it's not like, oh, I hit 150, I'm 150 with everything. It's all split up into these smaller bars per expansion.
I actually like that.
Yeah.
Like I haven't tried it in practice. I'm not sure if that's available on the beta properly, but I like that because it means that there is a reason to have recipes from the different expansions.
Yeah.
And I think that's cool.
I'm a fan of that as well. It can also make the UI easier to see, so you can be like, oh, I just want to see my Cataclysm recipe.
Oh, yes.
Big time on that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and also just picking up new professions, I think, feels a little bit less daunting, right? Because they already added it so you could kind of catch up no matter what. But you're like, oh my gosh, there's 800 levels to this. You know, it's
right.
a little intimidating, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of works out to the same amount of levels. It's just if you just care about maxing out the, things for the expansion, it's 150 points. But if you want to max out everything, then that almost keeps getting up to 800 again. If it's 50 there and like 100 there, you just if you really want to be maxed out on every single type of thing, you're still in for a bit of a grind.
Okay.
Which I think is okay if you're a collector, you don't mind the grind. But if you just want to craft your flask of the expansion, then you don't care about some, weird recipe that drops in Shadow Moon Valley and Burning Crusade.
Do we know if professions are going to have major quest lines like we had in Legion?
No, it's going to be more straightforward. There's going to be 3 ranks of stuff, but it's more like reputation locked. So it's, not as intricate, different take.
Because I enjoyed the quest lines on my main, but when I wanted to level professions and alts to, quickly, I don't know, for example, get the mount from, was it leatherworking? Then it was not fun to have to go through them all.
Yeah, it's a lot of work to be able to kind of get into, especially later on in the expansion.
Yeah. And imagine if you did it early on when there's no flying as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yikes.
But it was fun to do on the first character. Like on the main character, it's fun to do that kind of extra content.
Yeah. So yeah, there wasn't too much new stuff in the interview. I think this was more an interview if you were like, I mean, it was in Forbes. Like, that's not really your daily World of Warcraft reader. So a lot of it was stuff if you maybe didn't know about the expansion, you'd want to read it. But a lot of the other stuff was just stuff we already knew, like, oh, communities exist, or like, did you know that you can't swap gear in Mythic Plus? Stuff we kind of already covered.
It's more casual. I mean, it's no Wowhead, right?
Right, yeah.
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 It's not Wowhead.
This next part I'm really excited about. It's the armor and transmog highlights. So I'm sure Annie will be a big fan of this as well.
More things to collect.
Yep. Blizzard basically went into their archives and they took all this gear, all the unused colors of raid armor, and they're putting it on BOE gear, which we think will come from island expeditions because they all have names themed after the type of mobs you can find there. And they look super cool. And in addition to the recolors, they also have these Vrykul themed leather, mail, and plate sets. So I am most excited about the sort of ice blue recolor of Paladin Tier 12, as well as the Firekin leather set, which is kind of like a modified Druid Tier 11, so you look like the Druid of the Flame in Layara's Locket from Firelands. Those two are my favorites.
Whoa.
Yeah.
These are nice.
Yeah, the one that reminds of Druid of the Flame is actually really cool. I think that was definitely my favorite as well.
I also like the male new Dragon Rider set because it has gives the appearance of tattoos on your back, like various, very cool runes. So I think that's interesting as well because male always has the vibe that they kind of get the bad end of the stick or like the weird recolors. So I'm glad they have a cool set.
The slideshow right now is going through the leather ones. So a lot of these are recolors of previous tiers. And here's the Druid of the Flame one. Let's go on to the male slideshow. This covers male. And then after that, I'll click on to the plate. But yeah, so a lot of these were, like Perk mentioned, in the archives, just sitting there. Probably not sure when to use them, and now they've found a place for them.
Yeah.
The tentacle head, yeah, that was the Warlock one, the cloth one.
Yeah, I think that's tier 13, the Dragon Soul. I don't think that color was exactly new, but you couldn't get all pieces of the set before, so it still has some value. And the pieces you could get were Warlock only, so like if you're a mage and you want to look like a Warlock, now you can.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. So some of these are not completely new in colors, but they became available to the other classes as well of the same armor type. And this is the Paladin one.
Yeah.
You saw it.
So good.
I like this warrior one too.
Oh, it's the Mogu. Yeah.
I think that's an example of one that was in the game for warriors only, and now it's available for everyone. Well, for all the other plates.
Yeah, so you can be like a DK Mogu, which is pretty neat. So yeah, I'm a fan of this as long as they don't. If they just have it from all islands, I think that's cool. If they make it so like, oh, you have to like run mythics to get this, then I think that might be weird because a lot of people that just want a cool blue paladin set may not overlap with like I want to do cutting edge content. But I'm okay with them using these recolors. You know, they're world drops, they're BOEs. It's not like for doing the hardest content in the game, you get a recolored whatever. So, you know, it's cool. They found a place for these recolors, and I think it makes thematic sense with islands because a lot of these islands have, like, you know, mobs from a lot of old story points, which fits these armor, you know, aesthetics from all different raids.
Yeah, I feel like I don't mind recolors when it is like a sort of filler content in it, or filler transmog in a way. It's probably not in some kind of really important content, which is like, you know, Mythic Plus or raiding, but it's gonna be there, you know, available for the extra stuff, and I think that's cool. Yeah, I think that's the place where recolors do fit in. Yeah.
We also have a really cool. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. A quick one, which is like, especially because expeditions are supposed to be a little bit more like relaxed and a little bit laid back content, right?
Yeah. We also have a new version of Tibu's Blazing Longsword. Tibu's Scorching Straight Sword, which looks even more fiery, and transmog lovers will be all about this. Here
is a still picture of it, which doesn't really do it justice, so I've got the video as well to show you guys. Right here. Looks really cool. I need to get this fixed up. Do we know where it's from?
Damn. Alright.
It's a world drop, and I just went to the Wowhead page, and user Aspie says, I got this a few days ago from a random mob in Freehold, not the dungeon. And then there's a submitted screenshot of a Dark Iron Dwarf with transmog to these swords.
Okay. Is it a one-hand or two-hand?
It's a one-hand.
Okay, good. Then I can use that as a warlock.
Yep. You can use that.
See, now they just need blue and green versions. They need like lightsaber versions of these. Perfect.
Good point. Recolors.
Maybe for the next Star Wars movie.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Yep. Always a place for them. Yeah, I always, when I see something that looks really good, I get sad if it's a two-hander. Normally is. Two-handed swords normally look really cool. Like, I don't know if you guys know about the chromatic sword, that old one, which is not available anymore. Yeah, that one. That's actually a transmog that I did invest in. I got it like a week ago or 2 weeks ago because it looks amazing. And I can't use it on my main character. So what I do instead is, if we're doing, like, let's say just a heroic Argus like on stream, I just go on my warrior, because then I can dual wield it and it looks really cool.
That looks cool.
Yep. But otherwise, I try to focus mostly on my warlock. So, you know, if it's a one-handed weapon, it makes me happier than two-handed.
Yep. Let's see. We also got something on druid forms and transmog, talking about artifact restrictions. The UI was added, so when you select the artifact weapon tint, you can then go to the artifact. There's like a little drop-down menu, and it will show all the tints, and you can select what tint you want to be associated with. So, like, there are only 4 Claws of Ursoc fist weapon tints, but like each fist weapon has, I don't know, like 8 tints associated with it. So you select the fist weapon tint, and then you say, hey, out of these 8 options, I want option 7 to be my form, and then you can see that on the screen and approve it.
Yeah, a lot of people were asking a lot of questions about these, so I think what people are saying, music too loud?
Music?
I don't hear any music.
Yeah, I don't either.
Do you guys still hear music? It stopped now? Every time I start, I have no idea. Okay, let me know again if it happens. I will check. It was during the video of the sword. Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. It's unticked now. It should not happen again. So, yeah, sorry. In case it was too loud. Oh, apparently Towley just subscribed.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Thank you, Towley. I really appreciate it. Coming in exactly when we have the technical thing going on. Perfect timing, as usual.
Yep.
Thank you very much. But yeah, in case you guys didn't hear, Perk was explaining how you have a little drop-down menu and you pick the artifact pair as an option, and from there you can pick, which one you want, and from there you can pick which tint of that weapon you want. So
they have a fuchsia version. They have a version for you. Did you see
yeah,
that?
yeah, I saw it.
All right.
Yeah, that's mine, the fuchsia version. I think that's the one from the RBG ones. I'm not sure.
Yeah, Fall into Nightmare. Yeah, the spiky bear. I think that's it.
Yeah,
So.
I got the mage tower obviously because I was like, this skin looks so good, and you guys should as well. If you're in the chat right now, mage towers are going away. These appearances are going away. If you get the base one, you can get the other color tints later on, which is what I'm gonna do. For now, I'm just focusing on the mage towers that interest me. So Feral Druid was one of the main ones, or one of the first ones that I did on my ults, and yeah, it looks really good.
It's funny,
unique.
you don't have a lot of people playing Feral Druid, but then the Mage Tower comes around. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
I really want to look like this cat, even though I don't want to play Feral Druid in a raid.
Yep. Yeah, I don't really play alts like ever unless I need them for some kind of, achievement or something that helps my main with my collections. Could be Transmog as well. But Feral Druid, when I saw that Mage Tower skin, I was like, I need to get that. That'll be my first Mage Tower done on my ults.
Yeah.
I still need to unlock the tints though, but that's okay. There's no time around that.
Yeah. Our final transmog thing is way back when we had the last show, we pointed out some weapons that were called plundered weapons, and they were, again, unused recolors of weapons from past expansions, usually from raids. I think in our last show we highlighted a lot from Mists, maybe, and Cataclysm, and this build added a ton more. So it's definitely a thing. Blizzard is going all out, pulling out all their old art and saying, get it from islands, have fun.
Use them. We've been holding them for too long.
Yep. And what I think really stands out is that they have a few new models as well. And the plundered blade of the Northern Kings, warriors are just going crazy. They're like, oh my god, it looks better than my artifact. It's so beautiful.
It does look really cool.
Yeah, it's so cool. There's also a fire geode mace, a Jinyu spear, a Hosen chieftain's staff, a Jinyu longsword, a trident barb. But yeah, those are some new models, and then lots of recolors of famous ones like the Mallet of the Tides from SSC gets a recolor. The Wormbreaker from Magma gets a recolor. Some of the Shaw Touch weapons from like Heart of Fear and Shaw of Fear, they get recolors. So lots of cool stuff here. People that like transmog should be happy.
You looked like there was a couple of them from the challenge mode weapons that you got that were recolors as well.
Yeah.
For Warlords, yeah. Yeah, so it looks like some of the weapons from Warlords that you would instantly get recolored. That's awesome.
So, yeah, I'm okay with these being, the optional rewards that if you really like transmog, you can go get it, as opposed to like, oh, well, the season 1 mythic reward is this recolored axe. I think that how they're implementing them is okay. So far. I do have to wonder, like, why are they just throwing all the recolors now? It just, we got some recolored mounts, we got some recolored armor, we got some recolored weapons. It's like, well, do you guys maybe, what happens if you want to do this, for the next expansion? Do you have a, backlog of material you could use? But I don't know. I'm happy seeing these have the light of day.
That lava one looked really good. I wonder what that one was.
Wow. Yeah.
Oh, that's Warlords. That's the Crescent of Living Magma from Blast Furnace, I think.
So it's a recolor?
Yeah. It's
Looks
a Warlords
really good.
recolor. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, like as you mentioned, having recolors for just extra content, I think it's a great thing. I think recolors are only disappointing when it's meant to be a somewhat of a bigger achievement. That's why I was a little bit sad about some of the mount rewards for the big, you know, 400 mounts achievements, for example. But for these kind of things, I am 100% okay with recolors. I think they could be cool.
I agree. That's the best way to really have the recolors, is to put them into, you know, more easily attainable content that where you're always finding like a little bit of rewards here and there. And I'm sure people are going to pick out like 2 or 3 things that they just really want to go after, and then they have opportunities for it.
And they are BOE, so if you really want something and you don't get it to drop, you can just buy it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So our final bit of beta news before we finally get into artifacts is the research options. And it's just worth a mention because, you know, in Legion, the research was associated with, we gotta grind the research so we can equip the 2 legendaries and get the more artifact power, and this feels mandatory. But the research is coming back with more resources. And it's not as game changing this time. Like, they do have perks which affect different types of content, but it's not like your Azurite gains an extra tier at tier 4. It's like at tier 3, if you do 10 island expeditions, you get a perk related to island expeditions. So, you know, it seems more manageable. I think it seems better than the Legion version. Just to read a few, you can be an island archaeologist. You increase the duration of effects from shrines by 20% in islands. At tier 5, if you get a warfront victory, then you get to choose between 2 that give you more resources or make your troops more effective. And if you, you know, get revered with some factions, then you can get more war resources from emissary quests. So, you know, it's pretty straightforward stuff that affects very specific areas of the game, which, you know, so far seems okay.
I think some of these are pretty interesting for just general leveling as well. Like tier 1, you can choose the one to reduce your cooldown of your Hearthstone. I think Hearthstone is something, the cooldown of Hearthstone is something that you feel extra much when you're actually like moving a lot between different hubs, for example, when you're questing. And with the shorter Hearthstone cooldown, you can quickly go back to, like, you know, return a quest or something.
Right.
So I think that could be interesting. Then in the same tier, you could decide between that and Swift Landing, which what it does is capture the momentum from your recent flight path, increasing your mounted speed movement by 20% for 5 minutes. I'm not sure in what kind of situations that would be super like useful, because how often, like the time that you are returning from a flight path doesn't feel like it's gonna be that useful. But it's because like when you're in combat, like, or when you're questing, I don't see how that's gonna help.
Maybe
much.
If you're like gathering professions, you know, if you fight an area and you want to like grab a bunch of nodes quickly, or I don't know, run away from people.
Archaeology as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like non-leveling content.
I think there was another one which upgrades your whistle.
Yeah, the tier 4 local transportation. When you get 5 champions, you can get a quick flight back to Zul'Dazar or Borealis when using your whistle directly next to a flight master on Zandalar or Kulturas, which you know, seems useful if you're on the other continent and you know, need to get back to your main city quickly.
Again, like, I think that could be useful in questing when you're, you know, about to go to a different zone or something, then you want to sort of get back to like a hot spot. I think that could be useful.
Yeah. All right, so we are finally onto the live news and the artifacts shocking empowerment and stability that happened last week. So
wait, last week? It's like funny for me because I was traveling, so I wasn't able to play at all. So I was like gone from the internets for like a week. Well, at least from the computer internets. Obviously, I had my phone, but I can't play WoW on phone. So I logged in like 2 days ago, and that's when I did, and I was like, what's happening? And I was waiting for like, so what happens is that your artifact power keeps increasing. I think it started at, what level did it start at?
75 concordance.
There you go. And it keeps increasing all the time. You can look at the numbers and just stare at them, and they just keep increasing. And I was looking at them, and it was on a stream, and I was like, so when does it stop? And then I realized, like,
you just kept it on it, and it just kept on going.
Yeah, I don't think this is stopping anytime soon. And that's when I found out, like, hey, actually, like, your artifact level has been increasing. It started at, you know, some other level before, and now it's at 130. I think now already it's at 131. It keeps increasing, and I think it's a really cool little aspect of the story, because it really, you can really feel how, oh, this is growing so much. It's definitely like something's gonna happen. It's gonna explode. Like, I'm not even sure if I want to wield this weapon right now. It's dangerous.
Yep. Also, if you are like, my artifact is boring, what do? I haven't played in a bit. When you log on, you get a quest to go to Silithus. You do the quest to basically help deal with the wound in the world, and you absorb some of the evil, energy of Sargeras, and that in turn transforms your artifact, gives you all the traits, regardless if you're like a day one character, 2 years into Legion, and then it just keeps getting more and more unstable over time, which then lets you, maybe have an easier shot at completing content like, ahead of the curve or the Mage Tower.
Yeah, that's a very good point for alts.
Yeah. A good thing does not last forever, so when the pre-patch hits, the artifact just becomes like a very powerful, hard-hitting weapon, but it does not have any traits on it, and your relics don't deal with traits. They just kind of increase the item level of your weapon. So, enjoy all these traits, having everything while you can, because that is going to go away at some point soon.
Yeah, the Mage Tower thing was a very good point as well, because if you haven't played your alts, being able to get all those extra artifact levels will make a huge difference probably for your alts, and will make them a lot easier to do. So don't forget to do that if you're planning to do the Mage Towers.
Yeah. Our next topic, I was just reminding people, hey, do the Mage Tower. Jack can probably speak to this as he's contributed some of the guides, but you must get the Mage Tower done before the pre-expansion patch if you want that appearance for Transmog. You can unlock the tints after the pre-patch, like doing Kill Jaden or the RBGs, but you must get the base appearance now. And we have maintained artifact Mage Tower guides for over a year. We've give them like a go through every patch. And I think they're pretty good. Jack's biased and probably thinks that the healing ones
I hope they are.
Yeah.
I hope they are, Well, one cool thing, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I believe if you have, like, for example, Priest, there's a lot of main hand offhands that are going to be going on in BFA, but you're actually able to transmog your main hand offhand to your specific artifact if it's the right specialization, which is amazing for me because, like, I love both the Holy and Disc staves, and I just think the staves look way better than main hand offhand. So I'm always going to be able to have that for the spec. I love it. I'm super excited about that.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point. When I first saw the pictures for Holy, I wasn't too excited about them. I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna do the disc Mage Tower one. I think I might skip the Holy. Then when I did the Holy and I got the weapon, I was like, whoa, this actually looks really nice. Like the pictures, they don't really do its justice, because it has like these little sort of feathery mini wings in a way.
Yeah.
That they look really good. So
I
haven't even seen the recolors yet. I need to check them out.
Yeah, just do the, I think it's the Legion Dungeon ones, which make it gold. It's that or Heroic Kill Jaden. It's gorgeous. It's so good.
Gold. Yeah. Ooh. Yeah, I need to check that out.
I was also going to say that if you haven't, if you have like an alt and you're like, oh, should I do the Mage Tower? Is there still time? There absolutely is still time. One of our other class writers, or Holy Paladin writer, Pelinel, did all 36 challenges and then wrote a guide on how he was able to gear up all of his alts in a week or less as preparation, and then he wrote a guide to that. So if you have a brand new character and you want to know how to get some gear quickly, definitely check out that guide on Wowhead as well.
I think one of the main things that can be a bit tricky when you realize that you have to, get the weapon for all 3 specs, or, well, I guess, some classes 4 specs, some classes 2 specs. It's one of the main things that can be annoying to get are relics. And so if you're planning to possibly do, a certain spec or a certain class, check that out as soon as possible so that you can look up for world quests. Because world quests, they always rotate. So it's good to be able to pick up the relics that you need as soon as possible. Like I was gearing up my mage, for example, and I needed my arcane weapon and my frost weapon gemmed up or reliced up, and I was able to get like 4 out of 6 just by doing world quests, and the intro quest to Argus also gives you one, because those relics make a huge difference.
Right.
Going from no relic to a relic, even if it's only like 900 item level, it's still a huge upgrade on your weapons.
Oh, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So you should definitely go to those, and obviously also remember to update them or upgrade them at the Netherlight Crucible.
Yeah.
Makes a big difference.
If you are looking for other content you should get done, either before the pre-patch or BFA, Blizzard has written an article highlighting some of the content as well as guides on Wowhead that go into even more details. They've highlighted things like getting your Violet Spellwing. That goes away in BFA proper, not the pre-patch. And there are groups like Friendship Burb and Perky Pugs, which I know Jack is involved in, that can help you get that very pretty rainbow burp. You want to get ahead of the curve and cutting edge Argus for the pre-patch. The Mythic Mount drops get nerfed to 1% when the expansion hits. There is the Chosen Transmog from Trial of Valor, and there are a bunch of other things that will just be harder to complete when less people are around. So if you're doing Fisher Friends of the Isles, it goes faster when there are more people around, like creating the pools, as opposed to being the only person trying to do it in, a year or so. And yeah, we have lots of guides on that, and lots of communities, trying to help you with these and other achievements. And as for everyone wants to know, like, when is the pre-patch? We don't know. We saw Blizzard, they did their end of the season warning today, but they didn't say when the season ended for PvP Legion Season 7. They just said it's soon. Usually they do that 2-ish weeks before the season ends, so we could be looking at the 17th, which would also line up with when the PTR says testing ends for the Burning of Teldrassil, and it's also right that? When... Yeah, it's like, this testing event runs from, like, June 16th to, July 16th.
Ah, okay.
So it could be that. Also, the Arena Season 2, all that wraps up the weekend before the 17th, and it would be weird to have, like, all your casters and, like, top Arena people, like, traveling and playing an old version of the game instead of streaming a new version. Yeah. So I think that's all going to wrap up before the 17th.
Yeah, I would imagine the 17th is going to be closest. I mean, we kind of always have, like, it's the end of the season, and they're like, well, when's it going to be? And then they're like, well, duh, it's going to be 2 weeks from now, Right.
Yeah.
I feel like, well, I like how they do it, but they always kind of, like, bait us with it, but I think it's at least a clear sign it's going to be the 17th.
Yeah, Class Writer channel's like, oh no, I think it's the 24th. I want more time.
Yeah. Oh, that's always a thing. Always.
Yeah.
And that's about a month before the expansion, which also sounds pretty normal. Yeah. So it's probably around there sounds about right.
Yeah. This next part, you can't do it now, but I just thought it was worth mentioning because Blizzard hasn't done anything like this before. So they had this Welcome Back weekend through June 24th. And if you were an inactive player, they made you active for the weekend and bumped your count up to Warlords of Draenor for free. And they also had a discount on character services, and things that historically are usually not on sale were on sale. And I guess the question is, like, was this a success or not? Because I have mixed thoughts on this, because it takes a really long time to install WoW. Like, WoW is a bigger game than something like Overwatch.
Yeah. And
when you only have a few days to play it, and it's going to take a while to just install that can feel kind of meh. And I think a lot of people with the Welcome Back were like, oh yeah, End of Legion. Wait, why am I in Warlords?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point too.
I know I've seen a lot more interest in things like Wowhead Mage Tower guides or like Legion content when Blizzard announced that, but I didn't see as much attention as to like returning player resources for that Welcome Back weekend. And like we really tried hard to promote those resources. It just didn't get the same attention as what you could argue was, more specialized content that, has less of a reach. Like, Mage Tower Tint is, bigger news to the Wowhead community than like come back and play WoW.
Yeah, I think because most of the time people who already play it are the ones who follow the news. So
Right.
if you're not playing it, you probably won't be reading the news that much. And then by the time you read it, maybe it's already over, or maybe it's like already halfway through. And then, like you mentioned, the installing taking that long. I think maybe a weekend was too short. Maybe you needed at least a week or so
Right.
for people to
And,
hear
like-
about the news, install the game, and like realize what is new, what is happening. Especially if it's a really old player, it could be really confusing. Like if those 2 days, was it 2 or 3 days?
I think
It was
three.
like 2.5 or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. So like if those 2-3 days was spent on, you know, installing and trying to understand what the hell's going on, then maybe like the person won't really, you know, stick around, because like,
Right.
okay, I don't like this game anymore. You know, I don't understand what the hell's going on. It took too long and I didn't get into anything. Maybe a week would be better, but then maybe a week of free game time could be weird for people who pay for it, because what happens then? Does that mean everyone's game time will be extended by a week, or like, you know, like it could be a bit of questions there as well.
Yeah.
I mean, also a lot of people quit in Warlords, so you don't want them to be like, "Oh, free, come back," and they're like, "Oh, well, like I quit in Warlords. Like, why are you giving me Warlords again?"
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point as well. Maybe they should have given a little bit of access into the new content. Maybe like trial characters that were able to go into the new content that they don't necessarily
Yeah.
keep. Maybe that could have worked.
Or allowing them to have some kind of scalable scenario. I mean, if they added it, for example, for Teldrassil quests, right? They say like, oh, okay, we can scale up your character for this level, and then
Right.
you can do the Teldrassil like lead up to everything. So you like, oh, I saw the cinematic, but like, why did the cinematic happen? Well, everybody gets the Teldrassil quest, right? So
Right.
Mm-hmm.
you just
I
get that,
wonder.
and that gets you into it because it's just a weekend, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Without
yeah.
having to worry about the issue like you mentioned, Annie, of you know, what happens if you give people a week, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I wonder if they will try. They view this as like a test run, and they'll try reusing this tech in the future, because that would be interesting if they're like, "Oh, everyone gets to do Teldrassil this weekend," or, you know, first weekend BFA comes out, like everyone gets like a little tease of, you know, BFA for a day or something. I don't know. I could.
Mhm.
I think that it took a lot of tech. I mean, they've never done this before, and we know, we were talking about, the research UI. Like Blizzard doesn't just do something once and put it aside. They try reusing it over and over. Reusability is key. So I could see this tech coming back in some form in the future.
Mm-hmm. And some people were asking, like, is this testing for Blizzard or for Warcraft to go free to play? I mean, I guess you never know. Maybe sometime in the further future, but I think WoW fits better with a paid subscription. I don't like the idea of like having like a bunch of microtransactions. I feel like it would.
Oh my god, here's a big bug. Sorry. Oh my god, my cat's playing with something, and I was like, what is he doing? And he's chasing a bug that's very big. Okay, he's on it. It's just he just carried it out from under my.
At least you've
so,
got a.
like,
You got a bug hunter. That's good. If I see a bug, I'm doomed. I have nothing. I have to fight it.
Thank you, Brightpaw. You can kill that away from me. Thank you very much. Okay.
But yeah. The topic of free to play. I'm not sure if free to play would be good for WoW. Maybe I'm just saying it because I'm used to it not being free to play. But I feel like. I feel like it should be as it is. Maybe I'm a little bit biased, but I feel like free-to-play games have not as good quality content. It's like maybe because the company's more like focused on what do we need to do now to make sure that we get our revenue in. Where like if you have a subscription that need to get extra revenue isn't really there. The focus is like we get the money monthly, and then we can focus on getting the good content out, and hopefully people stay subscribed.
Yeah, and also a lot of the way that free to play games already make their money is through aesthetics. And if you're trying to do like, what would you do with transmog when you already have an entire system that's built into the game? Well,
they do have those. Is it 2 or 3 hats transmogs?
And everyone freaked out about those.
No one liked them.
I still don't have them. I didn't like them either. I don't like the idea of like paying money for transmog. I think I'm okay with pets and mounts, but even those I feel like they should be rare. Not like 10 10 mounts just reintroduced to the Bliss store. Having that sort of 1 or 2 mounts per expansion, I think that's a good balance, and it should stay like that. Not to give more incentives, like I don't know, like League of Legends and stuff. It's like hundreds of skins. Like, yeah, I don't think that would fit WoW very well.
Yeah. So going back to the artifacts, we talked about the, things that newer players were doing, but going back to people on the very, very high end, people are doing some pretty crazy stuff in game with their artifacts being mega powered. So, shout out to the people who have, done all these things and sent them to Wowhead. The first thing is a world's first Mythic Keystone 30 completed in time. These are members of Method. They completed Lower Kara with 0.087 seconds remaining.
Yep, that's crazy.
Really awesome job.
0.8. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely insane.
No time to breathe. That 0.8, guys.
What was also really nice about this is that I think when the first 29 was gotten, Raider.io made a bounty on things where Wowhead, Raider.io, and Warcraft Logs all offered benefits to the first group of people to get a plus 30. So, it was cool having that sort of community involvement for that.
Oh, yeah. Wait, I remember hearing about that. So it's a special reward for them?
Yeah, so they'll get stuff like a year of Wowhead Premium, a Battle at Stormount of their choice, 1 year of Raider.io Premium, and then 1 year of Warcraft Logs Premium as well.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember reading about that.
It was insane. And I think a lot of it was, like part of it definitely was the concordance level if they're cutting it that close, but also, the team's finally getting the right key. There's so many teams who were just trying to get that lower 30, on like a 4 to 5 week to be able to get it. So it's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There also was the did you hear about this solo heal Mythic Argus that went on?
Oh
I
yeah,
heard about that too.
About that. I need to cover that after this. I got DM'd about that. That's pretty cool. Some guy soloed Mythic Argus. He had a really fun YouTube thumbnail. It was like Comic Sans. So I got to cover that after.
That was a priest, right?
That's right. It was this priest.
Yeah.
I think he probably read your guide, Jack.
Oh.
I don't think my guide covered that.
No, I think it's between the lines for sure.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Like, okay, sure.
Yeah.
The next one that Perk covered is actually touching some of my boys. So Heroic, Agramar, and Argus. I was very surprised because I didn't realize that's what they had been doing. And then in the middle of my stream, they just someone linked to the tweet from Wowhead, and I was like, wait, what? They just tagged my boys. Like, what? Oh yeah, they're in the chat now as well. Like Adoxy is there, Lengzy's there. So basically what these boys from Guild Solar Flare did was that they defeated Heroic Agramar and Heroic Argus with 5 players.
Yeah, so pretty awesome feat of strength. They also gave some thoughts to Wowhead on why they did the project and what was challenging about each thing. It seems like on Agramar, the Flame Wrens were a pretty big challenge because they could, get them dangerously close to death every time. And yeah, it just was a fun thing to do when, other content's getting stale, and they thought that, with the changes to Concordance, they might as well give this a shot. Mm-hmm. Which, we're very glad they did.
Definitely. I also see Taylor in the chat as well. And Spooter, I believe Spooter was in the group too.
Yeah.
Shout out to you guys. Good job, guys. Proud of you.
Yeah. It was Adox, as you mentioned, Madeline the Resto Druid, Lynn's the Blood DK, Spooter, the Marksman Hunter, and then they had Tazelock on Agramar and Bandic on Argus. Sorry if I mispronounced your names.
It's okay. I think they're used to their names being butchered. Yeah, Maddie's here too. She's here too. Yay. Good job, guys. Yeah, that means the boys and girl.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And girl. But yeah, good job, guys. And I think around the same time, maybe it was even the same night, I'm not sure, normal Argus was defeated by 3 players. By a different
that was slightly before. It was, we featured Durandil, who is a hunter. He's written some soloing guides on Wowhead recently. Rex Troy, a Prot Paladin, who, he's he got notoriety for getting a lot of, 10-hour Antaurus solo kills, which is still pretty cool in its own right. And they have worked on a project to 3-man all Antaurus bosses except for Barry, because it doesn't really make sense. And they got Argus down with 3 players. The 3rd player for this fight was Yanko, so props to all 3 of them. And they've written a guide to Wowhead. They submitted all the videos and little descriptions on what was like, the hardest boss and what are like must-have talents. And also, their thoughts on how they approached this challenge and, what was the hardest boss and all that. So, awesome achievement, and thanks for writing the guide on how to get all this done.
Mm-hmm. Good job, guys. Always fun to hear these sort of feats of strength. It's always like, especially like right before the new expansions hits, that's when people have like, the downtime to just like try out the craziest stuff. So this is like the perfect timing to do this sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So that's about it for live news. So right after Wowhead Weekly 164, Blizzard released news about Classic WoW. So it's been a few weeks, but we didn't want to leave it out because it was pretty big news. So we just want to cover it quickly. Don't want people to feel left out.
Mm-hmm.
And Blizzard announced that they are going to have WoW Classic start with the patch 1.12 patch, which, all the raids are already out at that point. You got AQ, you have Nax. I believe that was the pass that had the cross, server battlegrounds enabled. And what I appreciated in this blue post is that they spent a lot of time talking about engineering and how to make things work for WoW's modern tech. So it's showing it's not just like hot air, like, oh, this patch is cool, yay, we gave you news, but they actually tried to get really geeky and like into the details about how they're trying to wrestle with this data, which I think people that are looking forward to appreciate the extra details.
Mm-hmm. I think people are also very excited that a specific patch was specified already. So a lot of people with, hashtag no changes are very excited because they're like, okay, that's good. They're putting a lot of thought already before anything else has really been like released about it on what patch is going to be focused on. And that's cool news.
Yeah. And yeah, that's about it for the news we had this week. We had a super long show. I just wanted to shout out some of the stuff that Annie and Jack are doing, as well as some new things on Wowhead you may have missed since the last time we had a show. We've had a bunch of new guides we've been featuring in the news, including, but not limited to, a guide on details and Whitefest and how to make macros. We also compiled a list of all the artifact traits that are coming back in some form in BFA. We launched a huge array of guides to secrets organized by all expansions. So if you're bored one day and you're like, I don't know what to do, but I want to go find a bunch of cool stuff in Outland, for 5 hours, you can just go to the guide and list like every secret. We got featured by Blizzard in some of their returning player and, what to do before BFA materials. So, awesome. Thank you so much, Blizzard. We work really hard, so it's cool to be featured. So our work can help even more players. We have a new guide homepage. We don't have a image of this, but it is pretty useful. If you go to wowhead.com/guides, before it was like a list of 3,000 guides, very text heavy, and we've now updated that in all the subsections, so it looks very modern and clean and highlights like the top 5 guides for like add-ons and the top 5 guides for transmog, and it's very easy to navigate. I love how it looks. It reminds me of the new like Discord games tab, which was just that came out right after we added that homepage. So great design.
Wait,
sense.
so that was a new homepage for
guides.
For guides. Okay.
Yeah. So
I haven't checked it out yet.
Yeah, before it was like, oh, like Wowhead has written 3,000 guides.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay.
Like good luck.
Now it's like, oh, we decided that the guide talking about what to do before BFA should be like gigantic with a nice image, and then like underneath we should have little class icons like talking about how to play your class. Like it's like sort of curated pics. It's you don't get like thrown in the deep end.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And yeah, I thought that I don't know if Jack has anything to add about guides here. I know he's hard at work. We have like deadlines for all the guide writers, so.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely say that the requirements, being stepped up, also the extra support, from the site and from the staff has been just incredible. So I'm looking forward to publishing them and making sure they're going to be nice and pretty for BFA.
Yay.
Awesome.
And yeah, I know both of you have some stuff going on as far as beta keys. If you guys want to, talk about that. So.
I'll, Jack, you can mention it and I'll link it in the chat.
Yeah, so both Annie and I are going to be a part of just a promotional event with Blizzard tomorrow. Tomorrow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Where they're going to be featuring both of us and a number of different streamers. I think we're both back to back, actually.
Yeah, we are.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, wide range of streamers, for that it will be featured by Blizzard, of course, as they're doing a number of different beta keys on, I believe, their official Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
While the rest of us are going to be giving a bunch of different pets and mounts away, and probably some beta keys depending on our own streams. I probably will be doing some during mine as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the times I noticed someone says 1 p.m. stream ? If you're European, don't panic. It's Pacific time. So 1 p.m. stream is actually maybe 3 hours into my stream. It's around 10 p.m. Swedish time or Central European time. So it's not a crazy early stream. It's a regular stream, and a couple hours in, we may notice a bit of promotion from Blizzard. And their giveaway is going to be a pretty simple one. It's about killing the horde and taking a screenshot and posting it. Tag WoW. And then you might win a beta key. And on the stream itself, they are also providing us with some extra pets for us to give away to you guys. So it's going to be awesome. Yeah, destroy all the horde.
Really excited for both you guys to be featured. I like when Blizzard does something and it features a community of people, so it doesn't feel like one person's on a pedestal while like everyone else is sort of feeling left out. So I think it's cool how they have this marathon of lots of people that play WoW being involved and sharing the love. So
yeah.
Oh, and
Definitely.
Towley was here earlier on subscribing.
Yeah,
he's also one of the
that's right.
streamers in this thing, so that's
yeah,
cool.
I think he's the lead-off streamer, so that's cool as well.
He is indeed. So
Yeah,
that's
and
awesome.
if you want to catch Panzer, who she's over on Facebook now, a former Wowhead Weekly host.
Oh,
she
yeah.
is part of the series as well, so
Yep.
say hi to her. We love her. She's awesome.
I
Great
think she's the
talk.
only Facebook streamer from all the streamers, so that's pretty cool that they included that too.
Yeah, that is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. And also for those interested for a bunch of beta keys, I do have a beta key of my own. I'll link it once in the chat as well. It's one of those Twitter giveaways with the question, what was your very first character's name and why? So I think that I've been reading a lot of the responses. It's actually really interesting to read. Some of them are really funny. Some of them are maybe not super funny, but still really random. And it's I like this giveaway idea compared to like my old ones before. I mean, the old ones were also pretty cool. They were like screenshots.
I like ours.
Yeah.
I was talking. Don't worry, I love the Pepe one. All right, I'm
Yeah.
talking about the other ones. No,
Yeah.
Pepe was great. Don't worry. But I think this one is really cool because it allows people to be a little bit personal about what's going on in their life. Because a lot of times people, when thinking about their first character, it's a nostalgic thing because for a lot of people, it might be over 10 years ago, and it might remind them of what they were doing at the time. So it's I think it's a thing that can get to touches people's hearts. So it's awesome.
Yeah.
And I
It feels like
think-
a lifetime ago when I first started playing. I don't know about
I
you
know,
both.
same.
Yep.
Like classic WoW. It's like, wow, that was over 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I didn't even play at the beginning, unfortunately. But even for me, it's been like 10 years almost. So it's crazy. It's crazy. WoW has been around for a long time.
I know, it's like
Doesn't seem to be
half
going
of some
anywhere.
people's lives. Yeah.
Mhm.
It
Yep.
keeps growing and evolving.
It really is. It's
WoW's
really
a
cool to see
teenager
as
now.
well. Yeah. And like being here, like, years later on a podcast talking about WoW, it's really cool.
Yeah.
Like if you think back
Yep.
at it, it's really
It's like
cool.
when you start playing your level 1, you don't really think about that sort of thing.
No.
It's like, wow, like doing all this stuff with this game. It's cool how I made it something even bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Without
Yeah,
a doubt.
it's been really cool, especially the past year, with Wowhead as well as Blizzard too, like giving all these opportunities to be able to do things. It's been it's been really cool. I'm actually wearing my Legion shirt because Legion is soon over. So, you know, I have to make use of my Legion merch when it's still relevant.
So relevant, yeah.
And Legion will always be a really special expansion for me because of all these things around streaming and all the opportunities and working with Blizzard. It's been really cool.
I cannot agree more on that one.
Yeah.
I think the timing has been similar for you, right? Because you said you started streaming first time 4 years ago, and that was the same for me.
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean,
really cool.
Legion was definitely the most transformative time of my life so far with WoW. And just content creation. Oh, probably the most transformative time period.
Graduating from college and like driving across the country.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty big.
Yeah. It's like we're just sitting here like reminiscing the whole expansion.
It really
Soon
is,
a new expansion. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's like meta. It's not just like, oh, there's like, you know, the Mythic Plus was cool. It's like, oh, it's cool because like I did this with Blizzard like in my real life and I got to travel here thanks to the game and this support. So
definitely. And Gamescom is happening just around the time of expansion as well. Yeah. Are you going to that?
I wish, but no.
Yeah, a lot of people are skipping it because of the timing.
Yeah. I mean, if there was ever a chance to go to Germany, I would love to. But I am going to be full on troll mode in my room, making sure I'm getting set and ready for raiding.
Yeah. Yeah. Understandable. So are you going to be progress raiding with a guild? Like
I'm actually going to be raiding on Future, or raiding on EU with Future.
Okay. Nice. Yeah. Wait, I remember you mentioning that. Maybe
so
not
every. A little busy.
Is this public news? Do people know?
Yeah, I've been trialing with them for.
Okay.
Yeah, now it is. I've been trialing with them for about a month and a half now. So.
Okay. Awesome. So we'll see you get the world first live on stream, right?
Ooh, we'll see about that. We'll see about that.
You're supposed to say yes, of course.
Yeah. World first, Mythic 15 on your Discipline Priest.
Oh yeah, Mythic Pluses too. It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're almost nearing a 3-hour show.
Yeah, it's been an epic show. Yeah, Katsuki
That's
just
crazy.
messaged me being like, you just hit a 3-hour stream.
Yeah.
So.
I just noticed as well. And I believe we have mentioned everything that we specifically wanted to mention. If there's any questions in the chat, of course, feel free to ask, whether it's about beta, about live, about Jak. Anything is welcome. We don't have SAS to collect the questions for us, so if you asked a question before, it's probably lost in the twisting nether, but you know, feel free to repeat. It's okay, and we can answer to the best of our abilities. But yeah, I can really feel how the expansion is getting so close. Like, and I was not really planning to do mage towers on my ult, but then like 2 days ago I was like, you know, it's actually it's like it's soon gone. Like that's a big deal. You know, maybe I should do these mage towers, and also because it's really convenient now. The mage tower is always up, because that was also a thing. Like sometimes like mage tower would be up, but I'm doing something else, and then it's not up.
So much too.
That too. And sometimes like when I wanted to do a mage tower, because I don't know, maybe the topic came up and I got hyped for it, and then it's not there. But now it's always there, and I think that's also motivated me to do more of it.
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah. Okay. The questions are lost in the twisting nether, and no archmage to send me the lost questions in the mail. When you showed the BOE recolors and showed the warrior ones, 2 of them are available on live servers to all plate wearers even. Was that a mistake from the database? Are you sure it wasn't a recolor?
So, like we said, some of them are already colors that are available on live servers. Maybe, like, a belt is new to the set.
Yeah, or, you mean the sets, not the weapons.
Yeah, so the armor sets.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, like we said, there are a few. It's not a mistake on our end. We verified the appearances in game. You know, maybe, I don't know, maybe Blizzard was just like, oh, we want another way of getting the set. Who knows? But most of them are, you know, unique, or if they're not unique, they have some notable accessory addition in some way.
Yeah, that's a good distinction.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's about it.
I
Thank
think
you
so too.
everyone for your support. We had a super, long fact-filled show. We hope that we, got a good hour of like Mythic Plus questions in. So if you were coming here for Jack, we hope we answered a lot of Mythic Plus questions and he shared opinions with you all.
Oh, I just remembered something.
Okay.
I don't think we mentioned it. The new rule of having only 2 coins a week.
Oh yeah, 2 coins a week, and they can be used in Mythic Plus.
Yeah, Jack, what's your opinion on that?
Yeah.
I mean,
Because I think we talked about this last show. I'm not sure.
yeah, it'll be nice. I don't really think it's too big of a deal going from 3 to 2 coins, right? It'll probably be the same odds of getting loot. But I'd much prefer getting more guaranteed. Maybe it might be like 50-50 instead of like the 33-ish% or whatever it is, maybe it will be, but I'm happier getting more loot out of my mythic cash than getting like chances at loot from coins,
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
That's fair enough. It just feels a little bit like, oh, before you got 3, now you get 2. They give you like a whole cake and then they take half away. But if they do increase the chance for loot per coin, then yeah, I do think it's better. Because I'm tired of rolling gold, honestly. It feels kind of pointless.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, I think
yes.
that is better. I mean, I would even accept like 1 coin, which is 100%. As opposed to like all these gold
agree.
coins.
Yeah.
Because then you can focus on that one boss, for example, where you really want a piece of loot or something. But yeah, hopefully we'll see some higher chances then. I think they're also increasing the cost, which I don't think matters that much on your main, but that could be difficult on your ults.
I agree. Yeah, especially, I will say BFA looks like it's going to be pretty alt-friendly, or at least I haven't seen anything that would make it as unfriendly as like Legion or Warlords.
Yeah, early Legion was pretty rough.
Right, yeah, big time. So if that's going to be the punishment for it, so be it, right? That will kind of suck for them. We have to grind a little bit more there, but it would be considerably less than like Legion, which just like locked you out from playing another specialization completely because of artifact power, and like locked you out from playing alts because of artifact power and legendaries.
Yeah. And artifact knowledge, right?
And,
At the
and
beginning.
artifact knowledge.
Right. Yeah.
And if you, for example, didn't level your alts on like day 1 and start your artifact knowledge then, if you want to level an alt in a month and a half where they haven't put any catch-up mechanics in, you're kind of screwed. So I guess it's a decay, like the costs decay over time, something like that. That's really nice to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Well, I think that will wrap up the show.
Yeah.
Thank
really
you very much, Jack.
Awesome detailed show. Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah.
It was awesome getting some extra Mythic Plus, what's the word? Insight, expertise as well. Yeah, that works too. Thank you very much for joining us.
Dominating the early part of the show. They're sorry,
Hey, no, that was the point.
Yeah, we purposely set it up that way.
Yeah.
Kitsuki was like, make sure we ask Jack questions about Mythic Plus. So we did.
That was your spotlight. I hope you didn't feel like you shouldn't talk the rest of it. Like, we want you to be a part of the spotlight.
Yeah.
Always.
I had a great time, and thank you so much.
That's great to hear. And
awesome.
thank you to everyone who are supporting in the chat. I've seen a bunch of subscriptions. Thank you guys for that as well. New subs, resubs. Also, shout out to everyone who is watching on Wowhead's front page, even if you're not in the Twitch chat. Thank you. Hello. We appreciate you guys too. And also a shout out to people who use the Wowhead Premium, which is a subscription on the Wowhead website, which removes all the ads and also gives you some extra perks, such as having your own color in the forums when you're writing there. Yeah. And also for followers. Thank you guys for following the stream as well.
Yep, thank you.
And if there's anything that you guys are wondering about anything and you were not here for the live stream, feel free to type any questions in the YouTube comments. We do check those out every now and again as well. So you're not outside.
Yeah. So, yeah, glad we could catch up on everything with the show, and hopefully we got all the important beta news and then the artifacts, and hopefully everyone got their Wowhead Weekly fix with this extra long, awesome show.
And Jack, do you want to tell us where we can find you? Again?
Yeah, you bet.
I heard apparently you might be streaming even after this.
Yeah, we're gonna hop on the stream after this, do some more beta at Mythic Plus as well. Maybe just knock out some expeditions. We're forming up groups. But all the places you can find me in this lovely overlay at the bottom left, or sorry, bottom right, I guess, on your screens. The AutomaticJak for Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, everything really. We'll be covering, quite a bit of dungeon breakdowns on YouTube, and of course just going through all the dungeons and working on as many healers as we can. Hopefully 120 realms, Blizzard, if you're watching, 120 PvE realms.
We
Yes.
all agree.
We'll hope for you.
Yes, I will play all the healers forever if you do that. Mistweavers everywhere, all right? I got you.
That's a
guys.
good deal. That's a good deal. Go for it, Blizzard.
Yep,
Yep.
it's open.
Yeah,
So.
thank you guys so much. And see you guys for next week's show. Same time, same date, Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Central European time.
Yep.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.
Yes, and Jack's stream is being spammed in the chat. Thanks, Katsuki. Perfect.
Yes.
Thanks, Stu.
Yes. Hit a stream up after this.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Later.
Bye.